Chapter 1295. After Pang Jijing left Xiao Ho's courtyard, she saw Lu Er standing outside with a conflicted expression on her face. Pang Jijing didn't know what she was thinking, but she seemed to have made a decision. She lowered her head and was about to rush into the courtyard, not even noticing Pang Jijing's appearance. Just as Lu was about to barge in, Pang Jijing laughed and said, "What are you doing?" The sudden voice brought Lu Er back to her senses. When she saw the person standing by the door, she immediately exclaimed, "Princess, Seeing Lu Er's incoherent manner, Pang Jijing was puzzled. "What's wrong with you?" "Princess, are you all right? I waited for you the whole night last night. The butler said that there was no need to worry with Lord around, so he sent me away." But she only needed to worry if Lord was around. Lu was looking at her anxiously and couldn't help but size her up nervously. She looked as if her princess had been taken advantage of. Pang Jijing met Lu Er's undisguised gaze and thought of something. She suddenly felt her body heat up and her face flushed red. She wasn't just taken advantage of last night. She was bullied over and over again the whole night, okay? But how could she say something like that? Luckily, the clothes that Xiao Ho had prepared for her were quite tight. Her skin was covered from head to toe except for her face. Otherwise, if the marks on her body were seen, she wouldn't be able to wash them off even if she jumped into the Yellow River. She coughed softly and met Lu Er's suspicious gaze. She pretended to be calm and said, "What could have happened to me? I just played chess with Xiao Ho the whole night. His chess skills are terrible. I won against him effortlessly. Also, this person is a sore loser. He kept dragging me down and I couldn't sleep well the whole night." Lu Er was puzzled. She heard that Lord's chess skills were excellent. Why did it sound different when it came to her master? If she continued, she would be exposed. Pang Jijing immediately walked past her and urged, "Don't just stand there. We should go back." Lu Er didn't dare to delay any longer. She immediately followed, forgetting all her questions. After getting into the carriage, Pang Jijing let out a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Lu Er didn't ask any more questions. Otherwise, she wouldn't know how to continue lying. However, she suddenly thought of something, and it was a very important thing. She and Xiao Ho were so intense last night. Could it be there was no such thing as a contraceptive pill in ancient times? If he wanted to go to the pharmacy to get a contraceptive soup, he was afraid that it would be too late. However, she comforted herself that she shouldn't be so unlucky as to be hit in one hit. Thinking of this, she comforted herself and relaxed. Then, she threw this matter to the back of her mind. However, she had forgotten that her fight with Xiao Ho last night was not as simple as just a single blow. At this moment, a thunderbolt exploded in the sky. Pang Jijing couldn't help but open the curtains. She found that the distant sky had been covered by dark clouds. At this moment, the world was dark and a rainstorm was about to come. Thinking of this, a few bean-sized raindrops suddenly fell from the sky and quickly wet the ground. Then, there were passers-by running wildly in the rain. In the blink of an eye, the rain became heavier. The sound of rain came from the roof of the carriage, covering the movements on both sides. "Princess, the rain is so heavy. It just rained last night, and now it's raining again. It's really worrying me to death." Lu Er was thinking about drying the silks and satins in the princess's dowry. However, it seemed that it would be delayed for another 2 days. Pang Jijing was thinking about the person who went to Hugua Temple today. She didn't know if the road was easy to walk in such heavy rain. She heard that it was all mountain roads. As soon as this thought surfaced, she suppressed it. There were so many people around him. How could anything happen to him? Moreover, he hid his identity so well. Unless there was something wrong with his head, he wouldn't go against the sickly lord. Thinking of this, she subconsciously touched the jade bracelet on her wrist. If nothing unexpected happened, she would leave this place when she returned to the relay station. She racked her brains to get rid of this identity and this situation. However, when the day really came, she suddenly felt a sense of loss in her heart. It was as if the belief that supported her had disappeared. However, she clearly knew one thing. That was, compared to before, she was even more reluctant to part with him. However, since she had already decided to leave, there was no turning back. "Princess, we've arrived at the relay station. She took a deep breath and walked down the carriage. However, because the weather change was too unexpected, there was no rain gear in the carriage. Moreover, most of the people in the relay station were guards and there weren't many maids to serve them. Therefore, the two of them walked through the long corridor to a place where they could shelter from the rain. Lu volunteered to get an umbrella and left her under the eaves to shelter herself from the rain. She leaned against the wall in boredom and counted the water circles on the ground. As she counted, she became tired. Last night was really torturous. She wanted to sleep no matter where she went. Just as she was cursing Xiao Ho in her heart, a rough voice sounded from the other side of the wall. "Sir, the dozens of masters we brought this time are all here." "Very good. The Crown Prince asked us to disguise ourselves as Xiao Lai and ride to Hugua Temple to assassinate Prince. Now that our men are all ready, we can take action now." After these words, chaotic footsteps could be heard leaving. She could imagine how many people were on the other side of the wall. Pang Huang asked people to assassinate Xiao Ho? Weren't they even allies? Did they turn against each other and become enemies? This wasn't impossible. Two people who were working together could draw their swords to each other if they didn't agree. Would he be in trouble? No, he had so many masters around him. No matter how many men Pang Huang had, they were no match for him. Moreover, she had seen his martial arts. Although it was rare, it was definitely not a problem for him to protect himself. She kept telling herself in her mind to be at ease. At this moment, Lu came over with an umbrella. "Prince Sunback, the rain is too heavy." The umbrella was almost blown away. Lu's grumbling laughter sounded in her ears, but she didn't hear a word. She followed Lu mechanically to her courtyard. After talking for a long time, she realized that the princess wasn't listening at all. Instead, she was in a daze. After leaving Prince Yi's estate, the princess became a little strange. Although she thought so, she didn't dare to say much. When the two returned to the courtyard, Pang Jijing stepped into the room and saw Huoling, who had been waiting for a long time. She thought of something and immediately said to Lu, who was about to enter the room, "Go to the kitchen and boil a pot of water. I'm thirsty." Lu, who didn't know the truth, was sent away. "Princess, my young princess consort ordered me to come and pick you up. Are you ready?" Huoling went forward and asked with a slight bow. Xiao Lai Chi only obeyed his two masters. He was always courteous to others, even to the Sichuan emperor. He wouldn't be respectful because of your high status. Pang Jijing didn't care that much, but her mind had flown to Xiao Ho at this time. Chapter 1296. Princess, Princess. Huoling saw that she did not respond and immediately called out a few times. Pang Jijing immediately came back to her senses. She waved her hand and said, "It's nothing, I'm thinking about some things. All right, we can go now." Huoling looked at her with a confused gaze, but he could not tell what was wrong. He nodded and walked out. When the two of them came out, happened to walk over. She saw a stranger wearing a bamboo hat beside her princess and couldn't help looking at him with vigilance. She asked her princess, "Princess, where are you going?" Huoling looked at Pang Jijing before pulling on his bamboo hat to wait at the entrance. Pang Jijing turned around and looked deeply at Lu. "I'm going out for a bit. You properly stay in the relay station and wait for me to come back." Didn't she just come back? Why was the princess going out? But as a servant, she did not have the right to ask this. At this time, she saw the princess walk towards her and then suddenly reach out to hug her. While she was stunned, she heard the princess speak in a low and hoarse voice. "Obediently stay in the relay station. If you miss me, someone will take you away." "Princess." What did that mean? After saying this, Pang Jijing put away the deep reluctance in her eyes. When she took her hands back, she had already recovered her usual mischievous smile. "I'm just teasing you. I'm leaving." She waved her hand and quickly walked towards Huoling before the two of them left together. Lu watched her princess leave and her heart inexplicably hurt. She suddenly wanted to leave with the princess. There is actually no one guarding the relay station today. It seems like it will be very easy for us to leave. At least they won't find out that the princess is missing so quickly. When they find us, everything will have been arranged. Hua Ling's hands were on the back of his head, looking very relaxed. It seemed like he was casually talking to this absent-minded princess, but he was actually helping her relax. However, no one could see that he was in a defensive state. As long as something happened, he would be the fastest to react. She didn't know if it was because all the experts in the relay station were out, but the entire relay station was very quiet, like it was an empty courtyard. Pang Jijing's heart trembled. Her entire body was like a stone as she numbly walked. "Princess, there is a market today. Our carriage is stuck on the road, but we'll be there soon. There are many citizens inside and outside the city, so it will be good for us to leave the city." Hua Ling continued. It had to be said, today was a good chance to steal the dragon and phoenix. However, the absent-minded princess's eyes suddenly turned cold as she turned her head and said to him, "Hua Ling, can you wait for me for a while? I have something urgent to do." Hua Ling was interrupted halfway and he looked at Pang Jijing with some confusion. "Princess, what is so urgent? You can tell me and I'll send someone to do it for you." Pang Jijing's eyes lit up. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly remembered that Xiao Ho and them were sworn enemies. If they knew that Xiao Ho was in danger, they would definitely not help her inform Xiao Ho. Therefore, not only could she not tell them, but she also had to keep this news to herself. She immediately shook her head. "Only I can do this. Wait for me outside the city. I'll be back soon." Seeing that Pang Jijing was deliberately hiding it, Hua Ling did not ask any more. However, he stopped Pang Jijing, who was preparing to leave. "Princess, wait." After Hua Ling finished speaking, he put his thumb and index finger to his lips and whistled. Following this, a black horse quickly rushed over from the side of the street. Hua Ling stroked the horse that ran to his side and then gave the reins to her. "Princess, it'll be faster if you ride a horse." Pang Jijing gratefully looked at him. "Thank you. This is what we should do." Pang Jijing nodded and took the reins. Then she jumped onto the horse and whipped it out of the city. The original Pang Jijing grew up in the grasslands, so her horsemanship was not bad. Therefore, when Pang Jijing sat on the back of the horse, her hidden skills were awakened. She breathed a sigh of relief, and then rushed towards Feng Tai Mountain. That was the only way to Hugua Temple. A bit faster. She had to tell him this news before those people arrived. Raindrops suddenly began to fall from the sky. Drop by drop, they quickly gathered together. Hua Ling watched Pang Jijing's back gradually disappear into the rain and slightly knit his brows. This rain, it came at the wrong time. At this time, in the moving palace. "Sir, our people saw the princess ride a horse out of the city." The person playing with the fan heard this and immediately closed his fan. His eyes lit up. "Then what are we waiting for? There is such a great opportunity in front of us." "Yes, this subordinate will send people out now." When there was only Yu Qingxi left in the room, he shook his head with a look of regret. "Princess, oh princess, the roads are slippery in the rain. Why are you going out in this kind of weather? If you're not careful and fall, what will we do if you die?" After the regret, his voice was filled with a trace of poison. "Relax, this young master is very easy to talk to and will not hold a grudge. Every year, I will go to your grave to burn some incense for you." The carriage heading towards Feng Tai Mountain was currently slowly moving. Although it was raining heavily outside, the carriage was as still as a mountain. White smoke rose from the incense burner, dispersing the smell of grass and earth. It lingered in the carriage, refreshing the mind and calming the mind. Xiao Ho leisurely leaned back on the couch, holding a book in his hand. His gaze fell on the pages of the book, but his thoughts drifted elsewhere. Although he had lost his mind because of the poison in the beginning, everything that happened last night was still vivid in his mind. Her delicate and smooth skin under his fingertips, her entire body turning pink under his teasing, as well as the scene of her subconsciously hugging him at the end of each time. He discovered that his heart, which had always been as calm as still water, was suddenly rippling. He closed his eyes, suppressing the heat in his lower abdomen. He couldn't help but rub his forehead. Just thinking about it made him feel a little stunned and a little unfamiliar. However, he was even more impatient to see that little rascal in his arms who was like a blooming flower. At this time, a subordinate's voice sounded from outside. Lord, Crown Prince Pang's people are lying in ambush on Feng Tai Mountain. When our people and General Li's people arrive, they will immediately take action. Good, inform Crown Prince Pang's people to wait patiently. It would be best if General Li's people coincidentally saw the assassination attempt on this prince. The play must be complete. His smile was cold. This play originally didn't have General Li's people, but a few days ago, he discovered that their return to the capital coincided with their plan. Since that was the case, it would be a waste not to use it. What was more convincing than having Imperial Father's people see it? At that time, he wouldn't need to make Xiao Su the scapegoat. General Li's people were very familiar with Xiao Lai cavalry. When Pang Huang's people played the role of Xiao Lai cavalry, they were 70 to 80% similar. When today was over, he could sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. When both sides were injured, he would reap the benefits. At that time, he could give that little rascal the life she wanted. Chapter 1297. It was stormy in the city. It was dark and gloomy. Sichuan Emperor stood at the highest point of the palace and looked at the vast darkness in the distance. No one knew what he was thinking. Just as eunuch Xiao was about to fall asleep, Sichuan Emperor suddenly asked, "Qiao Ji, will General Li arrive in the capital today?" "Your Majesty, General Li sent a pigeon last night and said that he will be able to enter the city by this evening at the latest," eunuch Xiao immediately replied. "Very good. The time I gave Su-er is almost up." Eunuch Xiao was a little puzzled. He could understand the first part, but he was confused about the last part. Although General Li came back to take over His Royal Highness's military power, His Majesty's words were too strange. However, based on his many years of experience by His Majesty's side, he seemed to smell something unusual. He could not help but worry about the King of England. Just as he was feeling uneasy, Sichuan Emperor spoke again. This time, his voice was mixed with the wind and rain. It was somewhat cold and frightening. "Summon the King of England to the palace for an audience." Eunuch Xiao was stunned. He raised his eyes to look at the figure whose dragon robes were fluttering wildly in the wind. That figure was so lofty and so decisive that his heart trembled. He didn't dare to look directly at him and immediately lowered his head. "Yes." At this time, he heard Sichuan Emperor say slowly, "Do not alarm anyone. This old servant understands." Eunuch Xiao retreated with fear. When he reached the corner of the jade steps, he looked up at the changing sky and felt a chill in his heart. Was the weather going to change? An hour later, Eunuch Xiao appeared at the gate of the King of England's residence. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan were still playing chess. However, they had moved from the courtyard to the attic of the main courtyard. This place was not only ventilated but also had a view of the surroundings of the prince's residence. "Big Ice Cube, you can't leave like this. You'll be eaten by me. Come, you have to leave it here." Xiao Su supported his cheek with one hand and looked at her with amusement as she changed the steps of his chess pieces. Only she could casually move other people's chess pieces like this. But it didn't matter, he spoiled her. He casually glanced outside and suddenly stopped when he saw something. After placing down the chess pieces, Chu Qingyan's face was filled with pride as she was about to receive Big Ice Cube's praise. However, when she looked up, she saw that he was staring at something. She could not help but follow his gaze. "What are you looking at? Someone from the palace is here." As Xiao Su spoke, Chu Qingyan also saw Qiao Ji, who was preparing to get off the carriage. She could not help but squint her eyes. Isn't eunuch Xiao His Majesty's trusted aide? Why did he come to the prince's mansion in the heavy rain? And what was the matter that required him to leave the palace in such bad weather? Chu Qingyan's heart was full of doubts. At this time, Turin appeared in the attic. "Master, eunuch Xiao is here. He wants to see you." "Bring him up," Xiao Su said lightly, glancing at the chess game. It was messed up by the little fellow again, but it could still be played. Her mind was still on eunuch Xiao's arrival, and she couldn't help but ask curiously, "Big Ice Cube, what do you think eunuch Xiao wants to do at home?" "I don't know. We'll know when he comes." He bent his finger and knocked on her forehead. "It's your turn. Don't be distracted." It hurts, It hurts. She covered her head and cried exaggeratedly. In fact, the big ice cube's strength was not strong at all, but it was much lighter than when they first met 5 years ago. In the past, he had been dealing with the burly men in the military camp, so he had not been so polite. Later on, when he met her, he realized that women were really made of glass. They would shatter at the slightest touch, so he subconsciously controlled his strength, afraid that he would hurt her. Now, he had spoiled her to the point that she was out of control. She was going to tear the tiles off the roof. Just as Xiao Ji was about to go upstairs, he heard laughter coming from upstairs. He couldn't help but be startled. This was His Royal Highness's voice? For so many years, he had never heard His Highness laugh so happily. He couldn't help but feel a little happy. It turned out that His Highness also had such a side. But when he thought of His Majesty's summons today, his heart couldn't help but sink again. Under the scary lead, he slowly walked up the stairs. After hearing the sound of wooden planks, Xiao Su had already restrained the smile on his face and returned to normal. Chu Qingyan was carefully choosing the chess pieces that looked pleasing to the eye and preparing to place them. It wasn't until Eunuch Chao's figure appeared that she looked at the stairs with a faint smile. This old servant greets His Highness and Miss Chu. Eunuch Chao stepped forward and bowed. As far as his eyes could see, His Royal Highness's indifferent expression was still the same as always. If he hadn't heard the laughter just now, he would still think that His Highness would always only have this side of him. Moreover, the maids standing beside him all looked normal. It was obvious that they were used to His Highness like this. He was both gratified and emotional that His Highness could be happy, but he didn't forget the purpose of his visit today. Your Highness, His Majesty has asked for you to enter the palace. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan turned her head to look at Xiao Su, who was seriously looking at the chess game. He didn't even raise his head and said unhurriedly, "Did Imperial Father say what it was about?" Eunuch Chao became even more respectful. His Majesty didn't say clearly. Xiao Su furrowed his brows slightly. It wasn't clear what he was thinking. Chu Qingyan propped up her chin with both hands and smiled sweetly at Eunuch Chao. In a cute tone, she said, "Eunuch Chao, then did His Majesty mention anything before? After all, His Majesty is so dignified. My Highness also needs to be mentally prepared. Otherwise, what if he says or does something wrong?" Chu Qingyan was only a 15-year-old girl. To many people, she was still young. Her appearance was already outstanding, and right now her extremely cute and obedient appearance was very easy to bribe. For example, Eunuch Chao standing in front of her. Although he felt that what Chu Qingyan was worried about wouldn't happen, he was still moved by compassion. He said to the two of them, "Before this, His Majesty received news that General Li will be arriving in the capital today." Xiao Su's eyes flickered slightly, but he quickly fell silent. Chu Qingyan thought of the transfer of military power that Sichuan Emperor had mentioned before, and her heart immediately burst with joy. Could it be that Sichuan Emperor intended for them to formally transfer military power? At this thought, her eyes lit up even more. She stared straight at the large block of ice in front of her. Xiao Su was amused by her sparkling eyes. Then he picked up a chess piece and casually placed it down, chuckling. "Wait for me to come back and solve this game for you." Eunuch Chao was stunned by his smile. So it wasn't that His Highness didn't know how to smile, but that he only revealed his true emotions in front of the people he cared about. He couldn't help but look at Chu Qingyan, who was staring at him with puffed-up cheeks. Suddenly, an indescribable bitterness flashed through his heart. He didn't know if he would be able to see His Highness smile like this again today. Chu Qingyan only had time to look down at the chessboard after the sound of footsteps faded away. Ah! The large block of ice was so hateful. It actually blocked her path. No wonder he said he would come back and wait for him to solve it. Humph. Chapter 1298. The rain was getting heavier and heavier. For Pang Zhijing, who didn't have any protection, the raindrops were like stones, pounding on her body and causing her great pain. The rainwater flowed down her face, and her wet hair stuck to her face, making it itchy. But she didn't care about anything else. She steered the horse forward with a clear goal in mind. Although her body's memory was that she knew how to ride a horse, her bones wouldn't be able to withstand a real battle. Moreover, she had to rush forward with all her might. However, she had to reach Xiao Ho before those people tried to assassinate him. She had to warn him. She had to catch up. Xiao Ho, nothing can happen to you. She clenched her teeth and held the reins even tighter. Although her vision was blurry, she struggled to keep her eyes open. Her heart was stretched into a thin line. The horse seemed to feel her anxiety, and its 4 legs stomped even harder. Like a bolt of lightning, it shuttled back and forth in the rain. Xiao Ho, who was sitting in the carriage, felt something and covered his chest. Just now, his heartbeat seemed to be a bit strange. This was something that had never happened before. He frowned slightly and reached out to lift the curtain. The cold wind mixed with moisture suddenly poured in and hit his face, instantly waking him up a lot. Where are we? It was dark outside. He could barely see the trees, but it was hard to tell where he was. Lord, we have already reached Feng Tai Mountain. The subordinate replied. Where are General Li and the others? They have already started to enter the mountain path. The subordinate continued to reply. Very good. Wait until we are halfway up Feng Tai Mountain, then we can directly send out the signal. Xiao Ho temporarily put the small episode of his irregular heartbeat to the back of his mind. At this time, he was more concerned about the implementation of this plan. Another half an hour passed. A small cluster of flames appeared in the air. Because the sky was dark, this faint light became the most conspicuous point. Suddenly, the wind and clouds surged. The slowly moving carriage suddenly encountered an obstacle. The carriage suddenly stopped, and Xiao Ho's gentle voice came out. Why did you stop the carriage? Your Majesty, Lord, we are surrounded by bandits. Suddenly, a cry of alarm came from inside the carriage. Bandits? You actually dare to snatch it from me. The bandits, who were being talked about, sneered. We're not bandits. We're here to take your lives. Xiao Ho, prepare to die. As soon as he finished speaking, the black-clothed men immediately flashed their weapons. Stepping on the rein, they immediately rushed towards the carriage in an aggressive manner. The guards who were protecting the carriage had already drawn their weapons. Seeing this, they immediately went up and started fighting with these people. The sounds of weapons clashing and shouting were drowned out by the sound of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. At this time, Xiao Ho slowly lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked at the blood that was slowly spreading out. His eyebrows turned, and at the other end of the mountain path, the blurry image of a group of carriages and horses slowly appeared. Although he couldn't see the people clearly, he already knew who they were. He gently curled the corners of his mouth, revealing a determined smile. General, there seems to be a fight in front. A soldier saw the chaotic battle in front and immediately ran to the side of the carriage to report to the people inside. As soon as he finished speaking, the curtain of the carriage was lifted, revealing a middle-aged man with a curly beard and wearing armor. This person was Li Weiyuan. He narrowed his pair of sharp eyes and said in a rough voice, "First investigate clearly. Is it a Jianghu vendetta, a bandit robbery, or some other reason?" The soldier immediately trotted away and quickly returned. "General, there are people trying to assassinate the people in the carriage. Their methods are cruel, and it doesn't seem like a robbery." At this time, the carriage had already moved closer, and the silhouettes of those people could be seen. Li Weiyuan frowned. Looking at those people's clothes, they seemed to be guards. This place wasn't far from the capital, and it was also the only way to Hugua Temple. It seemed that some aristocratic family wanted to go up the mountain to pray for blessings. However, looking at this situation, it was very likely that it was related to the internal strife of the aristocratic families. If he interfered, he was afraid that he would be contaminated. However, if he turned a blind eye to it, it would give other people something to use against him. He was afraid that he couldn't avoid being implicated. "General, these people are blocking the road. What should we do?" The deputy general urged his horse to the side and asked. "Deputy General Xiao, send a group of people forward to help. Conserve your strength. There's no need to use too much strength." Li Weiyuan thought for a moment and gave the order. Deputy General Xiao, who had been by his side for so many years, understood the general's meaning. It was nothing more than to intervene and help, but not completely. He couldn't waste his own strength. Whether those people were killed or the black-clothed people ran away when they saw them, they couldn't offend either side and had done their best to be humane. Deputy General Xiao counted his men and prepared to go forward. However, at this time, a green figure fell out of the carriage. Then, trembling with fear, he stood up by holding onto the shaft of the carriage. And Li Weiyuan just happened to see this scene. His eyes couldn't help but widen. Wasn't that Lord Yi? Deputy General Xiao, quickly, go save them. Deputy General Xiao didn't understand, but Li Weiyuan had already taken his broadsword and rushed towards the crowd. They were so shocked that they immediately followed. Xiao Ho, who was holding onto the carriage, saw that the originally unorganized carriages suddenly rushed over. He smiled in a low voice. He knew that committee member Li was always indifferent. Unless it was related to his interests, he wouldn't meddle in other people's business. He didn't know whether it was the people's fortune or misfortune to have such a person as a general. That was why he revealed his identity. He didn't believe that Li Weiyuan would dare to ignore him, a prince, here. Your Highness, I'm here to save you. Li Weiyuan quickly arrived in front of him and cut the black-clothed man who was about to wield his sword in half. General Li, thank you so much for your help. Otherwise, I would have lost my life here. Xiao Ho said gratefully. Li Weiyuan immediately stood in front of him and said, Your Highness, don't worry. I'll protect you. You guys, take good care of your Highness. After that, he waved his broadsword and fought with the black-clothed men who swarmed over. Xiao Ho chuckled and then gave a look to the leader of the black-clothed men. The black-clothed man understood tacitly and ordered his men to distract the soldiers around Xiao Ho. Then, he brandished his sword and rushed toward Xiao Ho. Xiao Ho still had a subtle smile on his face. He wanted Li Weiyuan to see him get hurt. This was the most important step in his plan. Looking at the sword light in front of him, he sneered, Xiao Su, from now on, you may bear the infamy of being a killer. Congratulations. No, an exclamation broke into the curtain of rain, but was drowned out by the fierce wind and rain. Xiao Ho felt his heart beat erratically again. He looked up as if he had sensed something. The sword light was close at hand. In his eyes, a pink figure rushed towards him like a flying disc. His pupils suddenly dilated. Chapter 1299. How could it be her? How could she be here? Xiao Ho couldn't care less about the tip of the sword that was close to his eyelashes. He slapped the ground with one hand, trying to circulate his internal force to stop her. However, he spat out a mouthful of blood. This morning, he didn't care about the internal injury. But at this time, when he was circulating his internal force, it suddenly flared up. His blood flowed backward and blocked his meridians, making him unable to move for a while. Everything happened too suddenly, in the blink of an eye. However, for Xiao Ho, it was like torture in slow motion. Looking at the rushing figure and the tip of the sword that was close at hand, an inexplicable panic spread from his heart to his limbs. Xiao Ho, I'm here. The person who was dripping wet smiled and opened her arms, hugging him without hesitation. No, puff, the sound of the sword piercing flesh. The person who hugged him stiffened, and his eyes widened in an instant. Torai, who was covered with a black cloth, didn't expect that the princess would suddenly appear under his sword. At this time, Xiao Ho's trembling hand held onto her shoulder and slowly placed her in his arms. He didn't dare to touch her chest that was dyed red with blood. His pale white fingers brushed away the hair that stuck to her face, revealing a pale but smiling face. His heart was sucked out bit by bit as blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Why are you here? The voice was no longer his. Pang Jijing opened her eyes. After a while, she saw the person in front of her. Did she see wrongly? There seemed to be a lot of emotions in his eyes, worry, sadness, pain. I went back to the station and heard that Tori and the others were plotting to assassinate you. I was worried, so I wanted to come and warn you, but I didn't expect to be late. She said intermittently. Her chest hurt so much that she began to hallucinate. The Xiao Ho in front of her seemed to have something cracked in his eyes. His eyes were filled with regret and helplessness. It turned out that it was because of his plan. Xiao Ho was stunned on the spot. If little rascal knew that this murder was planned by him, would she still be so honest and look at him wholeheartedly? He said with great difficulty, "You're stupid. I'll be fine. Even if everyone here dies, I'll still be fine. Do you know that? Why are you so stupid?" She coughed softly and stared at him helplessly. Unfortunately, it was not lethal at all. "I'm already injured like this, can you stop scolding me?" "Okay, I won't scold you. I just sealed your acupoints and stopped your bleeding. Now, I'll take you home to treat your injuries." Just now, he had taken her pulse. Although her wound was on her chest, the sword had deviated slightly and did not hurt her heart. This was a blessing in disguise. When he learned of this fact, his heart flew from hell to heaven. Fortunately, but if he let it go on like this, the wound would get infected and corrode her heart. Even the gods would not be able to save her. Just now, he had forcefully opened up the clogged blood vessels. Although it was very harmful to the body and almost made him unable to stand up, he did not care so much at this time. He did not want to borrow other people's hands because only he could touch his woman. He reached out and picked her up. Although the blood in his body was still surging, he did not show it on his face. Go home?" She raised her eyebrows. She had almost forgotten her promise with Qingyan. She struggled to get down but was held down by him. "Don't move, the wound will bleed." He lowered his head and said softly. She was stunned and then pursed her lips. "Can you send me back to the relay station?" "What do you think?" Xiao Ho gave her an ambiguous answer and then planned to walk towards the carriage. Pang Jijing wanted to say something, but her mind was already in a mess and she slowly lost consciousness. Tori looked at Xiao Ho, who was about to leave, and immediately turned around to stop him. "Lord, you can't go. Our plan has not. Scram." Xiao Ho expressionlessly spat out a word and then walked past him. The little rascal's breath was already a little weak. He could not delay any longer. Xiao Ho sent her to the carriage in a panic and then ordered people to quickly return to the city. At this time, he could no longer care about the big plan of framing him or the hatred of his family. His heart and eyes were only filled with this little rascal in front of him. He held her tightly in his arms and stroked her eyebrows with his fingers. His lips moved slightly. "Why are you so stupid to come and save me?" Fool. However, no one saw that in the storm, dozens of figures were jumping on the trees, like ghosts following the speeding carriage. The arrows on their shoulders flashed with a cold green light. At the same time, Xiao Su stepped into the imperial palace and slowly walked down the corridor. At the end of the corridor was the imperial study room. A sudden clap of thunder sounded in the sky. His eyebrows moved slightly and he looked away to the horizon. His eyes were slightly heavy, as if he was recalling something. He remembered that every time there was a thunderstorm, there would be a bad experience. For as long as he could remember, on stormy nights, his mother would smash everything in the palace and point at him, scolding and punishing him to vent the anger in her heart. Later, he learned that Consort Yu was afraid of thunder. Every time there was a thunderstorm, his father would accompany her. His mother was angry and helpless. On his birthday when he was 10 years old, there was also a heavy rain like this. His father was absent from his banquet and went to accompany Xiao Ran, who had a high fever. He waited for a day and a night. Then the next day, a fire burned down his entire palace and the innocent him who was waiting. He remembered that 7 years ago, Feng Ling brought people to stop the enemy. When he arrived, blood flowed like a river and the wind and rain formed a grave. Those graves were personally buried by him. 5 years ago, there was also a heavy rain like this at the palace banquet. Xiao Ran was assassinated and his life was uncertain. His father, Consort Yu, suspected that he was the culprit and did not want him to see Xiao Ran. He could only kneel in the rain and not get up. His father, the emperor's distrust, and his mother, the emperor's ridicule, were still vivid in his mind. The most recent incident was when he entered a black inn. He did not pay attention and the little fellow was taken away. When he brought people over, he only saw the little fellow lying in the wind and rain, barely breathing. After that, the four sides moved to kill him. He had clearly sent her to a safe place, but just as he was about to accept his fate, she returned and appeared in front of him like a firework. It was also raining heavily. He and her were almost separated by life and death. And in the 5 years that he was with her, he was fortunate to have a trace of peace. Every year when there was a storm, she was by his side. There was no conflict, no darkness, no misunderstanding, no assassination. It was peaceful and safe. She was the one who warmed his years and stunned his life. He slightly curled his lips into a smile, but the smile quickly disappeared from his eyes. Today, there was still a storm raging between heaven and earth. It was very similar to the previous few times. He turned back to look at the palace door in front of him and felt an indescribable irritation in his heart. Chapter 1300. Your Highness, His Majesty is waiting for you inside. Eunuch Xiao was a bit confused when he saw His Royal Highness stop in front of the door, but he still reminded him. Xiao Su didn't say anything. He turned to the side and pushed open the door. The heavy door was pushed open from the outside, and the sound echoed in the empty hall. Although he didn't know where this feeling of unease came from, he had to face it today. He didn't hesitate to step in. The Sichuan emperor was standing in front of a portrait, looking up and admiring it. When he heard the voice behind him, he didn't turn around. Instead, he said calmly, "You're here." Xiao Su lowered his head slightly, bowed, and then asked, "Yes, I have come as ordered. What matter does Imperial Father have for me?" "Come here." The Sichuan emperor turned and beckoned him over. Xiao Su hesitated for a moment before walking over. However, he didn't walk side by side with the Sichuan emperor. Instead, he stood a step behind him. "I have a question for you. Please ask, Imperial Father." The Sichuan emperor pointed at the painting on the wall and asked with a smile, "Do you know who painted this painting?" Xiao Su turned to look at the painting. There was no name on the painting, but he could tell that it was a good painting. He answered truthfully, "I don't know." The Sichuan emperor put one hand behind his back and stroked his beard with the other. He said slowly, "This painting was painted by the painting saint, Lu Shiran." Lu Shiran? Is it the one who was cut in half at the waist 6 years ago? Xiao Su was a bit surprised. "That's right." The Sichuan emperor's eyes darkened. "He was a famous painter and was greatly favored by me. However, I can't tolerate being lied to. Therefore, I was very angry when he said that a tiger painted as a cat was actually a cat. Although I cherish talents, I can't allow others to lie to me." Xiao Su didn't know why his imperial father suddenly brought this up. Although he didn't show it on his face, he already had his suspicions. The Sichuan emperor glanced at the people beside him, then turned and walked back to the dragon throne to sit down. "It's been so long, but I haven't asked about the soldiers who fought in the war with Nansong. Many of them didn't enter the capital to receive their rewards. I don't know if you've settled them down. We can't do without people at the borders. The war of the southern Blue Mountains consumed too much manpower and military strength. In order to prevent the neighboring countries from seizing the opportunity to invade, the majority of them stayed behind to guard the borders. Although they didn't enter the capital to receive their rewards, Imperial Father didn't treat them unfairly. The imperial edict to reward them according to their merits has been issued, and it's extremely generous. Of the matter." The Sichuan emperor nodded. "They're all good men of Sichuan. It's thanks to them that we were able to protect this region." He suddenly changed the topic. "I remember that in the army, there's a very outstanding youth called Chu Yen." Xiao Su's pupils shrank. He didn't know why his imperial father suddenly brought this up, but he still calmly said, "That's right. Although he's young, he's brave and resourceful. He's a rare talent." The Sichuan emperor's eyes were full of praise, but his tone was doubtful. "I've also heard that many generals are full of praise for him. But why isn't he in this trip to the capital? Also, why isn't he in the list of rewards you drafted? Did you miss it or?" Xiao Su lowered his eyebrows. He was originally going to follow I to the capital, but something happened at home, so he left. He also said that he won't enter the court as an official. However, if the people are in trouble, he will still step forward. This kind of talent is hard to come by. However, I've heard that Chu Yen has no parents. He's an orphan. How could something happen at home? Could it be? The Sichuan emperor's tone changed. He looked at Xiao Su with a faint smile and said, "Is it because you're unwilling to let him enter the court as an official, or you don't want him to appear in front of me?" Xiao Su's fingers slowly clenched. The bad guess in his heart had been confirmed. He still said in a normal voice, "I don't dare." The Sichuan emperor acted as if he didn't hear him and continued. In fact, Chu Yen also entered the capital, but no one recognized him. Don't you think that imperial father is right? Xiao Su pursed his lips. Chu Yen, Chu Qingyan. It's a difference of one character. It's actually easy to guess, but no one has ever connected the two together. Am I right? The West Xian emperor's words were as light as a feather, but it was as if a heavy stone had fallen on his shoulder. In an instant, his back stiffened. The carriage sped along the mountain path of Feng Tai Mountain. Unfortunately, it could only slow down because of the heavy wind and rain. This mountain path wasn't easy to travel on. It was also raining, so there were potholes everywhere. In addition, the visibility was too low, so the carriage stumbled along. Pang Jijing slowly woke up because of the bumpy road. The soft cough startled Xiao Ho, who was using his internal energy to dry her clothes. He grabbed her hand and looked at her with joy. "You're awake. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Pang Jijing took a deep breath before complaining to him, "You're hugging me too tightly. Does that count?" "You can still joke. It means that your injuries are stable." Although he said this, he still loosened his grip on her. He didn't know why, but when he saw her face that was so pale that it almost disappeared, he couldn't help but want to tightly hug her. That way, he could feel that she was still alive. Feeling that her wet clothes had become dry, she was a bit surprised. However, when she raised her head to ask him, she found that his lips were very pale and his complexion was not good. There was even a faint trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. It was like something was stabbing her heart. "What's wrong? Did those people hurt you?" She said this, feeling both angry and distressed. Xiao Ho gently smiled. "They can't touch me. This is the side effect of the poison from last night. As long as I rest well for 2 days, I'll be fine. Don't worry." She nodded her head. Thinking of how terrifying the poison was last night, she still felt a lingering fear. Fortunately, everything was already over. She felt a gentle caress on her face. Slightly stunned, she raised her eyes and met his gentle eyes. It was different from the gentleness that could not be found in his eyes in the past. This was a gentleness that came from his heart. She blinked. Why did this person suddenly change his personality and treat her so well? Could it be because she saved him last night? She was someone who couldn't hide her feelings. She couldn't help but say, "Xiao Ho, I'm not used to you suddenly being so nice to me. I'm being nice to you, but you don't like it. What a headache." He raised his hand and gently scratched her nose. His voice was helpless but filled with endless affection. However, this intimate action made her feel even more flattered. She hurriedly said, "Xiao Ho, if you feel bad because I helped you with the poison last night and you feel that you have tarnished a girl's innocence and want to take responsibility, I'm telling you that there's no need for that. Although chastity is important where we come from, it's not as important as it is to you. Moreover, the women where we come from won't reject a man because he has an ex, and the men won't reject a woman because she has a boyfriend before." So, suddenly, she felt that the surrounding air had become very cold. Then, Xiao Ho's expression became very, very scary. Chapter 1301. So what? Tell me. Xiao Ho smiled faintly as he leaned against the wall of the car. With one hand on her shoulder and the other supporting his chin, he looked at her calmly, as though he was all ears. However, his expression made Pang Jijing shudder. How is this all ears? She was afraid that when she finished speaking, he would make her wash her neck clean. Because of that plus reason, that's it. She immediately shook her head. She wasn't that stupid to move her neck closer. He touched her face when he heard that, and said gently yet threateningly, "Don't mention other men in front of me in the future. Otherwise, you will know the consequences." Why did she feel that there was a domineering aura around him? Could it be that her eyes were playing tricks on her? Also, they had only been intimate for one night. Why did he change when she woke up? Don't tell me you want to be rough with me? She harumphed. Rough. Xiao Ho repeated the word and chuckled. I don't hit women, but I can change my method for you. What the hell? Why did he suddenly lower his head? When he entered her lips, her brain was in a state of crash. Because she was seriously injured, he could only stop at the beginning. He stood up with a bit of desire and saw her dazed expression. He curled his lips into a smile and couldn't help but hug her even tighter. Finally, her face was no longer red and he pinched her face. Pang Jijing felt the warm touch on her face and instantly returned to her senses. Looking at the person who was obsessed with pinching her face, her initial shyness turned to annoyance, and then to anger. Xiao Ho, you pervert. You can't casually do that to me anymore. She couldn't say the word kiss. What is that? Seeing that she was in a better mood, Xiao Ho was in the mood to tease her. That? She retorted with a slightly red face. Xiao Ho laughed softly. Are you talking about hugging you and kissing you? How can you say that out loud? She was a reserved lady, and her mind automatically filtered out her initiative last night. Why not? Shouldn't you be responsible for what you did to me last night? I'm just hugging and kissing my future wife. What's wrong with that? Have you forgotten what you did to me last night? Do you want to be a heartless woman? The person who had been teasing her elegantly just a moment ago had turned into the image of a pitiful man who had been abandoned. If she wasn't the person involved, she might have been deceived by his appearance. After all, people with good looks could easily move people's hearts. However, she pursed her lips. Xiao Ho, you're too shameless. I'm the one who's at a disadvantage. You actually inverted right and wrong. You've gone too far. If it wasn't for the fact that she was so weak, she would have raised her finger and pointed at his nose and scolded him. He switched back to his original appearance in a second, but his voice was even more affectionate. Then I'll be responsible for you. There are still 10 days until our wedding. I'll find the best doctor for you. Although you can't fully recover in this time, at least you won't have a problem walking. We can even go through the wedding ceremony as usual. She was about to die from this gentle voice, but she knew very well that the reason why he was willing to marry her now, and not like before when he was forced to accept her, was because she had saved his life last night, in exchange for a woman's most precious thing. Xiao Ho, you don't have to force yourself. I won't regret any of the decisions I make. So you should just forget about what happened last night. I won't be going to the king's palace later. She really didn't regret it because this person was someone she cared about in her heart. Forgot. Xiao Ho raised his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes as he approached her. You're planning to leave me? He suddenly remembered how she and Chu Qingyan had plotted to escape. Although he knew that they wouldn't succeed, when he thought of her leaving him, he was angry. Pang Jijing's body froze. It can't be, how could he see through it so easily? Did she say something wrong? No, I'm planning to go back to the relay station. If I don't go back, will be worried. Why aren't you worried about me? Xiao Ho's soft voice was drowned out by the sound of thunder. What did you say? She blinked. You've already taken my family's family heirloom and you still want to go back on your words? Xiao Ho coldly looked at her. Family heirloom? What kind of ghost was that? Seeing her blank expression, it was clear that her brain wasn't working properly. He could only kindly remind her, did you not notice that there's something extra in your hand? At this time, she looked down and Jasper's bracelet appeared in front of her eyes. She couldn't help opening her eyes wide. You're talking about this? That's right, this is what mother left for her future daughter-in-law. It would be a hindrance for me to keep it here, so I put it on for you. I didn't think that it would look so good. He grabbed her wrist and seriously looked at it. After all, he was the one who chose her as his wife, so of course he had good taste. After nodding his head in affirmation, he held her finger. Under her shocked gaze, he slowly said, so no matter if we're married or not, no matter where, you will always be my, Xiao Ho's wife. This is a fact that cannot be changed. She stared at him in a daze, feeling like she was dreaming. Was this still the Xiao Ho she knew? Then at this time, the carriage suddenly shook violently. Pang Jijing's wound was shaken and she couldn't help coughing. Xiao Ho's face instantly turned cold. "What's going on?" Someone immediately replied from outside, "Lord, we've been surrounded." The wind outside was strong, but inside the imperial study, it was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. "Imperial Father, did you misunderstand something?" Xiao Su's face was still calm and collected. Even if the dragon's might was suddenly released, he was still as immovable as a mountain. "Misunderstood?" Sichuan Emperor chuckled. "Not long after you arrived in Lian City, a 10-year-old youth suddenly appeared by your side. He's smart and sensitive, and he helped you deal with government affairs bit by bit." Chu Qingyan rarely appeared in the crowd. When you went to the battlefield, she also disappeared. However, Chu Yen has always followed you closely. This time, Chu Yen disappeared, but Chu Qingyan appeared. This could also be a coincidence. Xiao Su indifferently replied. "Is that so? Then can you make the two of them appear at the same time to confront each other?" Sichuan Emperor lightly chided. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes. A trace of displeasure appeared in his eyes, but he hid it extremely well. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Sichuan Emperor heavily slammed the table. His voice was deep and angry. "Xiao Su, how long are you going to keep me in the dark?" The wrath of a monarch wasn't something that anyone could resist. Xiao Su felt the strong pressure, but he still stood firm. He slowly raised his head. His eyes seemed to contain a turbulent whirlpool, but also seemed like the surface of a calm lake. He softly chuckled. "Imperial Father, you've been beating around the bush with I for so long. What exactly do you want to say? Why don't you say it directly?" Chapter 1302. He knew that he should keep his cool at this time, but as long as it involved the little fellow, it was too difficult for him to swallow his anger. Because he couldn't. This was probably the first time his son had spoken to him in such an unfriendly tone. Sichuan Emperor was stunned at first, then his face darkened. "So you can't hide it anymore? Xiao Su, let me see how far you can go." Su, you're wrong." "Su, what you said is wrong. You let a woman disguise herself as a man and sneak into the barracks. This method is deceiving the hundreds of thousands of soldiers. After all, there are military rules that forbid women from joining the army. Once discovered, beheading is a light punishment. What's more, this is deceiving the emperor. Once exposed, Chu will definitely not be able to escape the punishment of 9 generations of her family. As a prince, although your crime does not warrant death, it will be difficult for you to escape the condemnation of the officials. Imperial Father, I admit that Ian is indeed Chu Yen. This is the truth. I can't deny that I didn't think it through and allowed her to participate in the battle. Thinking about it, Imperial Father has already made sufficient preparations. There are witnesses and evidence. Since that's the case, there's nothing to deny." Xiao Su continued. "When she followed I to the army, it wasn't because she wanted to participate in the battle. When I took over the army, there weren't many capable generals left. That's why Ian was sent to lead the army. She was trained by I, so I clearly knew how scheming she was. Furthermore, at that critical moment, I could only use people he was familiar with to reduce the friction. That's why he was able to move quickly. That's why he was forced to do so." "Continue." Sichuan Emperor's voice deepened. His expression was unreadable. "Although women are not allowed to appear in the 3 armies, we can't be stubborn. We have to be flexible. Although Ai Yen is a woman, she is a rare talent. In the Battle of the Southern Heavens, she didn't lose to any of the generals. She achieved many military achievements. Furthermore, she didn't have any ulterior motives. After the battle in the Southern Blue region ended, she immediately withdrew from the 3 armies and no longer participated in any decision-making." After Xiao Su finished speaking, he cupped his hands and pleaded, "Imperial Father, please look at what she has done and not pursue the crime of deceiving the emperor." The West Xian the Arch stroked his beard and looked at Xiao Su silently. What Xiao Su said was very reasonable. Chu Qingyan was indeed a rare talent, and it was precisely because of this that the West Xian the Arch could not keep Chu Qingyan by his side. It was like adding wings to a tiger. What the West Xian the Arch wanted to do today was to break this pair of wings. Moreover, he had another reason. What you said isn't without reason. However, a country has its laws and a family has its rules. There's no such thing as an airtight wall in this world. Even if I help you hide it, if it's exposed one day, you won't be able to escape the blame of the world. If Imperial Father feels that it's difficult to explain to the world, then I have a way. Xiao Su said without hesitation, Ayan's contributions will offset her mistakes. If it's not enough, I is willing to give up my status and voluntarily become a commoner. I only want to appease Imperial Father's anger and the world's blame. Sichuan Emperor looked at his son in a daze. He suddenly felt that he had never understood him in all these years. Just like how he couldn't guess his son's thoughts at all. It had to be said that this was the best way. Not only would it make him hand over his military power and all his authority, it would also clear the path for Ranner's future. It was killing two birds with one stone. However, this wasn't his ultimate goal. Sichuan Emperor looked at Xiao Su and guided him patiently. You've made great contributions to the country and the people for so many years. You've achieved success and fame. Are you going to give it all up for a woman and bear a bad reputation? Is it worth it? Although Sichuan Emperor's words seemed to be admonishing him, Xiao Su understood the hidden meaning behind them. In Ai's life, once I make a decision, I never regret it. Xiao Su lowered his head and said resolutely, don't be in a hurry to make a decision. Actually, I also have a way to suppress this matter. However, I don't know if you can accept this method. Sichuan Emperor's gaze fell on him as he said this. There was an indescribable meaning in his eyes. Xiao Su looked up at him and said calmly, Imperial Father, please give me some pointers. Sichuan Emperor smiled and narrowed his eyes. It's very simple. Find a more powerful protection for Chu Lass. Xiao Su frowned and looked at him in confusion. You're going to leave the capital in the future and have no military power. If the matter is exposed, you won't be able to protect her at all. So, if you really care about this girl, don't keep her by your side. Sichuan Emperor suddenly changed the topic. He didn't care about Xiao Su's cold aura at all. You know that Ranner likes this girl very much, right? He doesn't eat or drink because of her. Now, he's even bedridden. It's inevitable that he's a bit rash when he's young and knows what it's like to be in love with her. As an older brother, you should be considerate of him. The hidden meaning of these words was to ask him to send Ai Yen to fourth brother? Because his fourth brother was very likely to be the next crown prince, so it was safer for Ayan to stay by his side? What kind of logic was this? Imperial Father, are you serious? Xiao Su's face darkened. He didn't try to hide his emotions. It was as if he had just walked out of a glacier, bringing with him a fierce wind and snow. At the same time, in front of Xiao Ho's carriage stood a row of men in black with bows and arrows drawn. They didn't come with good intentions. Xiao Ho lifted the curtain and saw this scene. At this moment, the leader of the men in black waved his hand and released arrows. Dozens of arrows flew through the air toward them. Pucci, many of the guards on both sides were killed by the arrows. Xiao Ho's face turned cold. Charge! Everyone immediately rushed toward the men in black. However, they were a bit far away. As the arrows flew over, many people fell dauntlessly on the road. Some of the arrows pierced through the curtain of rain and attacked the carriage. Xiao Ho sat as steady as a mountain. He held an arrow between his fingers and used this arrow to knock down the other arrows. Pang Jijing curled up in his embrace. When she saw this scene, she should have felt fear and terror. However, the warmth in his embrace seemed to have isolated her from the danger. It made her feel at ease and she couldn't help but want to rely on it. Although Xiao Ho's men had suffered many casualties, they didn't fear death and continued to press forward. This caused the men in black to be unable to shoot any more arrows and could only change weapons to attack. However, the men in black had come prepared. They had a large number of people. Xiao Ho's men quickly became one-sided. At this moment, someone jumped onto the carriage and dealt with the coachman. He then chopped off the horse's head. The carriage lost its horse and for a moment, it lost its direction. However, its four legs still maintained a running posture as it charged toward the cliff on the side. The cliff was close at hand. Xiao made a prompt decision. He picked up the person in his embrace and broke the wall of the carriage with his palm. He quickly jumped out of the carriage with her in his arms. However, the men in black who had been waiting on both sides rushed forward and brandished their weapons at him. Chapter 1303. There were people rushing in from all directions, as well as hidden weapons everywhere. If he was at his peak, all of this would not be a problem. Even if he was seriously injured, he could still barely protect himself. But to let go of the person in his arms, he could not do it. Pang Jijing was tightly held in his arms, with her head pressed against his chest. She could not see anything around her, but she could feel the clamor all around her, as well as the muffled groans coming from the people close to her. Her heart was fiercely clenched as her hands tightly grabbed onto his sleeves. Xiao, nothing can happen to you. The two of them were like a kite with a broken string as they were ruthlessly thrown out, rolling several times on the slope. Little rascal, are you all right? Rolling in the mud, Xiao, who was covered in mud, immediately picked up the person on the ground and carefully checked her body to see if she was injured again. She lightly coughed and opened her eyes to look at him. His face was mixed with rain and mud, making it almost impossible to distinguish his face, but his eyes were still so bright that it made her heart feel warm. I'm fine. Just as she said those words, she saw a black-clothed man appear behind him. He stretched out his leg and ruthlessly kicked at his back. Danger! Xiao did not pay attention for a moment and fell into the rain. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and just as he raised his head, he saw the black-clothed man raise his sword at Little Rascal. His eyes turned red. Little Rascal. Before the sword fell, Pang Jijing used all her strength to roll to the side, avoiding a disaster. Xiao saw that the black-clothed man did not hurt her and was about to get up, but his eyes suddenly shrank. Little Rascal, I'll save you. Because this place was a cliff, the place she rolled down was a steep slope. At this time, she could not bear the force and rolled down the slope. If she continued to roll down like this, the bottom would be the cliff. There had never been a moment when Xiao hated himself so much for not being able to catch the person he wanted to protect. He was seriously injured and could not keep up with the person who was rolling faster and faster. Pang Jijing bit her lips. Although her body was in pain from being cut by the gravel along the way and her wounds began to bleed again, she didn't dare to cry out because she knew that it would only worsen Xiao's worries. Suddenly, her body was suspended in the air. She was thrown off the slope and spun in the air. She looked carefully and saw the bottomless abyss below. Her heart suddenly shrank, as if it had stopped beating. His body paused in midair for a moment before falling down. Was it going to end? She slowly closed her eyes. A voice pierced through the rain and reached her ears. Little Rascal! Her wrist was suddenly grabbed, and her body stopped falling. She opened her eyes in disbelief, only to see her wrist being tightly grasped by a slender hand covered in blood. Looking up, she saw a gentle jade-like face. His black hair fluttered in the air, making his already pale face seem even more bloodless. Little Rascal, reach out your other hand and hold me tight. At this time, he was only holding onto one of Little Rascal's hands, but because of the rain, their hands were slowly falling apart. It was very unreliable. At this time, she saw that his body was also suspended in the air. He was just holding on to a bunch of vines on the edge of the cliff. At this time, because the vines were bearing the weight of two people, the roots that had drilled into the soil were slowly being pulled down. Maybe in the next moment, the vines would completely break away from the soil and the two of them would fall off the cliff. And at this time, he was seriously injured. His clothes were not intact and were covered in mud and blood. She knew that this was the price he had to pay to protect her. The sound of the sword piercing into flesh was like a demonic sound, ringing in her ears again and again. He might be able to protect himself like this, but for her, he stepped into the bottomless abyss. Below him was a desperate situation. We're in such a sorry state. Looking at his face that was covered in mud and was unrecognizable, as well as the person who was normally obsessed with cleanliness, she softly said, "It's fine. After we go back, we'll properly clean it up. Quick, reach out your other hand and hold on to me. I'm only holding on to your wrist, it's not reliable." At this time, Xiao did not have the mind to care about his dirty body. He only cared about having her put her other hand on his. The vines seem like they're about to break. She muttered, "Don't pay attention to it. Little rascal, give me your hand first, do you hear me?" Her hand kept sliding down and now he could only hold onto her 5 fingers. His palms were sweaty as if he did not see the desperate situation in front of him. He was a bit panicked as he gently coaxed her. "Xiao." She suddenly looked up and her eyes were like the warm sun shining on spring water. He looked at her. "I'll give you the rest of my life's luck and good fortune. If you finish your revenge, then live well. Find a good girl and live a peaceful and happy life." "Little rascal, what are you saying? Give me your hand." These words made him feel inexplicably uneasy. He could not help but anxiously and helplessly coax her. Pang Jijing deeply looked at him, as if she wanted to imprint his appearance into her memory and then seal it forever. In a person's life, there were many times when it was filled with what-ifs and unexpected things happened. For Pang Jijing, her life was filled with countless what-ifs. Although she had always said that her life did not have what-ifs, only consequences and results. But, if she had not transmigrated here, would she not have encountered so many things that she could not even imagine? If she could escape from Pang Huang's control, escape from Xiao's control, would she be able to live a more carefree life? If she did not fall in love with that person with a warm face but a cold heart, would she not feel so uncomfortable and unable to advance or retreat? She would not be like this, unable to get what she wanted and separated because of love. "Xiao, you probably don't know how much I like you. Because I like you more than you can imagine. I have never regretted anything that I have done, whether it was falling in love with you, leaving you, saving you, or standing on the edge of life and death with you. I believe that everything that happens in life has its meaning. Although this period of time is not long, it has let me know what is growth, what is love, and what is giving up. 2 people won't be able to survive this vine, but 1 person can." She looked at him gently. "No, we will both survive." He shook his head and said with trembling lips, "Xiao, in the future, don't let yourself be in such a difficult situation. Take care." She smiled as she broke free from his hand, leaving the last of the bright smile on her face to him. "I will give you all the good things in my life, you must be happy." The mountain wind blew and instantly swept the pink figure into the abyss. No. His hand was empty and the little rascal that liked to bicker with him disappeared in front of his eyes. His fingers suddenly trembled uncontrollably. Chapter 1304. In the future, don't let yourself get hurt again. Mother can't accompany you anymore. You have to be good. Xiao, in the future, don't let yourself be in such a difficult situation. Take care. His mother's voice from more than 10 years ago overlapped with the little rascal's words today, like a sharp blade ruthlessly stabbing into his heart. But everyone who treats him sincerely will leave him in the most tragic way in the end. Why can everyone who does evil live well in this world, while they, who bear a blood feud, have to taste being separated from their loved ones again and again? Buddha says that there are 8 hardships in life. In just a few years, he has tasted them one by one, the pain penetrating his heart. Rainwater entered his eyes and dyed them wet. That pair of eyes that are as gentle as water is now filled with pain and despair. Little rascal, why did you let go of my hand? I would rather fall with you than let go of you. He slowly clenches his empty hand, just like his empty heart. That vine is currently falling down inch by inch, but he doesn't feel it at all. At this moment, he seems to have lost all the light in his eyes, his whole pair of eyes are dim. Pang Jijing is finally dead. We can be considered to have helped Darren vent Miss Ro's resentment. Go, quickly go back and report this matter to Darren, let Darren also be happy. Words of schadenfreude come from above, very ear-piercing. Yu Qingxi, Xiaoho's eyes emit a cold light, like the coldness of the sun refracting from an iceberg. He gnashes his teeth as he calls out Yu Qingxi's name word by word. His fingers exert force, and his whole body uses the reaction force of the vine being pulled out in an instant to flip over and jump up the hill. You, why aren't you dead yet? The person who just pointed at him is holding his broken hand, looking in horror at the Yama who seems to have come from hell. The people behind him are also frightened and step back. I haven't sent your master to hell yet, how can this king die? He bends down to pick up that person's sword, gently brushing away the broken hand on it, as if he is just sweeping away a withered leaf. As soon as he finished speaking, he flipped his wrist. Instantly, sand and pebbles flew and the world changed. Other than the person with the broken palm, everyone else had their throats slit and died. The man immediately knelt down, trembling as he begged for mercy. Don't kill me, don't kill me. Go back and tell your lord that within half a year, this prince will personally take his head. Tell him to take care of his own life. Don't miss the appointment at that time. Scram. That person was stunned. When he met that pair of threatening eyes, he immediately rolled and crawled toward the curtain of rain. Ding. He plunged the sword into the ground and placed the weight of his entire body on it. After holding on for so long, he had finally reached his limit. The strength in his body was gradually drained. Before he lost consciousness, the image of little rascal's smiling face appeared in his mind. His heart ached, his vision turned black, and he lost consciousness. Violent winds and torrential rain washed over the entire world, and the flowing bloodstains gradually dissipated. Would that person's memories gradually fade away with the passage of time? This will take time to answer. At this moment, the air in the quiet imperial study was filled with the smell of gunpowder. Imperial Father, are you serious? When Xiao Su asked this question without hiding his emotions, the Sichuan Emperor's entire face darkened. Could it be that you're questioning my words? The Sichuan Emperor's voice carried a hint of anger. I naturally wouldn't dare to question Imperial Father's authority. However, this matter concerns the marriage of I and Ian. I naturally have to ask clearly. Otherwise, if I misunderstand, wouldn't I be even more disrespectful to Imperial Father? Xiao Su's words seemed respectful, but there was a hint of sharpness and toughness in his tone. The Sichuan Emperor narrowed his eyes, but his tone was still deliberative. He slowly said, Su, Earl, this matter is indeed difficult for you to accept, but this is for your own good. That last Chu has committed the crime of deceiving the Emperor. Not only did she deceive me, but she also deceived the world. If this matter is exposed, wouldn't it be impossible for both of you? Now that there is a method in front of you that can protect both you and her, isn't this the best of both worlds? Xiao Su meaningfully smiled. Ian has deceived many people, but if this matter is spread, I believe that the people won't be so calculative. After all, her merits outweigh her faults. Moreover, her actions on the battlefield have all been witnessed by the soldiers. No one will bite the hand that feeds them. Moreover, if Imperial Father doesn't spread this news, who else will know? Moreover, even if this matter is spread, Ian will bear the consequences alone. Imperial Father doesn't need to worry. Su, Imperial Father is doing this for your own good. The Sichuan Emperor was choked by his words, but he didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed. Imperial Father, if you want to help fourth brother break up Ian, then don't say it in such a dignified manner. These words were said without a trace of politeness. Not only was there no respect for the Emperor, but there was also a chill that made people tremble. However, this was the real Xiao Su. He had never shown his true self in front of the Sichuan Emperor. The Sichuan Emperor found that the person in front of him had become very unfamiliar. He couldn't understand this Xiao Su, but the Sichuan Emperor didn't plan on beating around the bush with him. That's right, Zhen is doing this for Ranner. Ranner is seriously ill and bedridden because of Chu Qingyan. If it wasn't for Chu Qingyan, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to recover from his illness. As the Emperor's older brother, you should be more modest. If you feel that your face is not right, Zhen will compensate you. No matter how many beauties you want, Zhen will arrange them for you. What if I doesn't agree? He coldly replied. Then don't blame Zhen for being impolite. I'm only discussing this with you because I care about our relationship as father and son. The Sichuan emperor's expression was incomparably dignified. His tone was high and mighty, as if he was giving alms. When Xiao Su heard these words, he inexplicably wanted to laugh. This was his imperial father, always using the most legitimate reasons to force him to give up the person he treasured the most. Imperial father, you've always considered fourth brother being bedridden. Have you ever thought about what would happen if I didn't have iron? But you've never considered I isn't a stone, he will still feel pain if he's cut. You are the ruler of a country and the head of a family. I never expected you to be impartial, but at the very least, when you throw I to a corner, don't take what I has in his arms. For so many years, I has been at your beck and call. It's not that he doesn't have a temper, it's just that he hasn't touched his bottom line. If you want anything else, be it military power, wealth, or power, I'll give it all to you. However, they are all worldly possessions for me. I won't even frown. However, you can't touch a single strand of Ian's hair. Because that is the bottom line that I can't touch. Chapter 1305. This rain is really heavy. I almost got soaked all the way here. Hua Xiao's voice rang out in the corridor. Just as she finished speaking, another voice echoed, "That's right. This kind of weather always makes people inexplicably irritated. Previously, there was a drought, and we prayed to the gods for rain. Now, look, it's about to become a flood." It was Yen Luo's voice. Chu Qingyan sat in the pavilion and turned to smile at the two people who were walking over hand in hand. She waved her hand and said, "Come and sit here. I'm here today to make tea and nag to relieve my boredom." Hua Xiao sat down and cupped her face with her hands, looking gloomy. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but turn to look at Yen Luo. However, Yen Luo was also sprawled on the table, looking gloomy. "Don't look at me. I'm in a bad mood too." Hey, what's wrong with the two of you? Why are you in such a bad mood?" She teased them, but neither of them paid her any attention. She couldn't help but laugh. "Tell me what happened. To be able to make you two buffoons angry, he must not be an ordinary person." Chu Qingyan gently tapped their foreheads, looking very helpless. It was as if the two of them were waiting for her to say this. They immediately scrambled to be the first to speak. "Qingyan, you don't know how despicable that miser is. Murong really pisses me off. You don't even know." Their voices overlapped and pierced her ears. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but cover her ears. She pointed at them and said, "Can't the two of you talk properly? One at a time." Pang Jijing and Hua Xiao looked at each other, sparks flying. Suddenly they said in unison, "I'll go first." Chu Qingyan felt a headache coming on. Rock, scissors, paper. Whoever wins says first. Hence, the two of them ran to the side to compare notes. After a while, Yen Luo walked over with her chest puffed out, followed by Hua Xiao who was winking at her. The winner was obvious at a glance. Yen Luo was given priority. She immediately poured out her complaints about the conflict she had with Ethereal in the past 2 days. "Qingyan, you have to be the judge. The weather is so hot. Why can't he let me eat ice? He won't even let me drink iced plum soup. How can he be so petty? Also, you know that my favorite food is West Lake hairy crabs. Coincidentally, the Mid-Autumn Festival is coming soon. The hairy crabs are fresh, beautiful, and big. I'm almost drooling when I see them. However, he told the butler not to make hairy crabs for me? Tell me, is there such a person? Tell me, did water get into my head? That's why I reconciled with him. I might as well live on my own." Yen Luo complained for half an incense stick's worth of time, but she was still not satisfied. She loved to eat, but that guy Murong kept denying her the chance to eat. This was worse than being dismembered. Chu Qingyan roughly understood what she meant, but it sounded like she was angry. For the time being, she did not comment. She turned to Hua Xiao who had been waiting impatiently for a long time and asked, "What about you? What's wrong with you?" Finally, it was her turn. Hua Xiao immediately pushed Yen Luo to the side and began to complain. "Qingyan, Let me tell you, that miser is really stingy. I asked him to buy some servants for the courtyard. Otherwise, I'll be the one doing the work. After I'm done, I still have to take care of the house. Do you think it's easy for me? But he didn't agree. Don't you think it's infuriating? Also, I went to the clothing store to get a set of clothes the day before yesterday. He said the fabric was too thin and did not let me wear it. Look, there are so many girls on the street who wear this. Why can't I wear it? Also, Chu Qingyan listened to the two's complaints for 2 whole hours. She held her forehead and finally raised her hand to stop the two's endless complaints. The two immediately stopped talking and looked at her with a sincere expression. Hua Xiao said, Qingyan, you and His Highness are the perfect example of a couple. I've never seen you quarrel with His Highness before. I'm so envious. What's so good about a husband? Quickly teach me. Cheng Yanluo also looked at her with a face full of curiosity. How can there be no quarrels between lovers? Although the two of us usually quarrel on a small scale and seem to live a smooth life, when we quarrel, no one can stop us. Thinking about how she ran away from home when the two of them had a disagreement, now that she thought about it, she felt that she was really too childish. But at that time, it was such a heart-wrenching matter. How could she not be angry? Now, looking at her two friends who were distressed and sweet because of love, she rested her chin on one hand and held the teacup in the other. She calmly sipped her tea while her eyes darted around, thinking of a solution. In order to prevent the two of them from complaining to her when they came to the prince's residence in the future, she felt that she had to use a big trick to let them solve their small problems by themselves. Actually, the two of them also need a bit of skill to get along. What kind of skill? Quickly tell us. The two of them immediately came closer, their faces full of curiosity. Once again, they spoke in unison. This is a well-tested skill in life. It's specially used to cure all kinds of irritation and anxiety. Listen carefully. Chu Qingyan laughed mischievously and then said wittily to the beat of the beat. When your child makes you angry, please calm down and silently recite, biological, biological, biological. Follow me, follow me, follow me. When your husband makes you angry, please calm down and recite, I chose, I chose, I chose. Serves you right, serves you right, serves you right. When your friend makes you angry, please calm down and recite, I taught you, I taught you, I taught you. Fine, fine, fine. When your wife makes you angry, please calm down and recite, I love her, I love her, I love her. Spoiled, spoiled, spoiled. Attitude determines one's mood. Cheng Yanluo and Hua Xiao were dumbfounded. No way. This is also possible. But it sounds pretty good. Seeing that the two of them had calmed down and were no longer as agitated as before, Chu Qingyan was just about to persuade them. However, at this moment, her heart inexplicably clenched, as if someone was stabbing her heart with a knife. This feeling made her very uncomfortable and somewhat familiar. She remembered that when Big Ice was injured, she had this feeling. Her whole heart was empty, as if something was about to be lost. She thought of Big Ice entering the palace today and suddenly had some conjectures in her heart. Will Big Ice be okay? At this moment, her heart returned to normal, as if what happened just now was just an illusion. General Li had arrived in the capital today. Perhaps Sichuan Emperor had called him over to let him handle the handover work. She was too sensitive, so her imagination ran wild. Freedom was close at hand. She was probably not used to the fact that something she had been yearning for so long had suddenly arrived. Chapter 1306. Qingyan, what are you thinking about? At this moment, Hua Xiao noticed her dazed expression and nudged her with her elbow. She couldn't help but ask curiously. Chu Qingyan snapped out of her daze and met her two friends' puzzled gazes. She couldn't help but smile. I'm thinking about the things you two were complaining about earlier. I think you might have misunderstood Ethereal and Lord Lin. You have irrefutable evidence and you're still saying that we misunderstood? Qingyan, tell me, are you standing on their side? Hua Xiao hugged her shoulders and snorted. Although Cheng Yanluo didn't speak, she looked at her suspiciously. Chu Qingyan's scalp went numb. These two were here to flaunt their affection for her. Okay, I'll dissect it for you. Chu Qingyan then looked at Qingyan Luo, who was closest to her. I remember that ever since you got drenched in the rain, you've been in so much pain that you wish you were dead. Am I right? The person who had been called out nodded. What does that have to do with this? Chu Qingyan held her forehead. Qingyan Luo still hadn't realized what she was talking about. Indeed, women who fell in love had 0 IQ. Do the math yourself. Isn't your period coming in a few days? Qingyan Luo lowered her head and pondered for a moment. Then, she looked up and asked blankly, How did you know? I don't know, but based on what you said just now, Ethereal must be worried that you'll feel unwell and that you'll be in so much pain. That's why he doesn't let you touch anything cold. Moreover, your body is cold and he's been thinking of ways to regulate your temperature. So, for the sake of your health, I advise you not to touch hairy crabs or anything else. Don't even think about it. Chu Qingyan's words enlightened Qingyan Luo. I was wondering why he was always fiddling with herbs in his room. I even blamed him for ignoring me after he won my heart. So that's why. Chu Qingyan glanced at her friend, who was both surprised and delighted at the same time. She was indeed here to flaunt her affection. After grumbling in her heart, she turned to look into her sleeve. All right, it's your turn. After listening to her friend's analysis of Yen Luo, Hua Xiaoli felt that it made sense, but, Qingyan, don't try to absolve Iron Rooster. Unlike Ethereal, he didn't care about Yen Luo at all. Everything he did was for himself. He didn't care about me at all. Listen to me first. Whether it's true or not, you can judge for yourself. Chu Qingyan shrugged. Hua Xiaoli nodded. All right, even if you say a flower, I won't believe you. It was obvious that this person was still angry. All right, let's talk about the first thing. You won't be staying in the capital for long, so you don't need so many people in the courtyard. That's the first thing. The second thing is that Lord Lin's reputation and status in the capital makes people scramble for him like a flock of ducks. If you release the news that you're recruiting people, I'm afraid the people who flock to you are all harboring evil intentions. Lord Lin probably wants to ensure that the place you're living in is a little more pure, without so much deception and scheming. And the third thing, Chu Qingyan dragged out her words. Her eyes scanned her friend's face, which was gradually becoming impatient. Then she slowly continued, the third thing is even simpler. Nowadays, which mistress of a household doesn't want their husband to be accompanied by only male servants? They don't want any female creatures to get close to them. You, on the other hand, always want more people to serve you. Lord Lin is a gentleman and won't have any dirty thoughts. But can you guarantee that those maidservants will be as calm as still water in front of Lord Lin, who is as handsome as a tree in the wind? Please, in the entire capital, who wouldn't want to pounce on Lord Lin after hearing his taboo name? Your Lord Lin has been guarding you day and night, but he didn't expect a thief like you to appear. You still have the nerve to come crying to me. Are the tears you're shedding now because of water in your brain? Chu Qingyan's angry words amused Qingyan Luo. She had thought that the little girl had cultivated her moral character in the past 2 years, but she didn't expect her to be so witty. Hua Xiao puffed up her cheeks. She had to admit that Qingyan's words were very reasonable, but she still wanted to be stubborn. Then what about the clothes? How do you explain that? Chu Qingyan knew that she had listened to her, but she still wanted to struggle for a while. Fine, she would satisfy her. Xiaoli, you're usually quite smart. Why did you drop the ball at such a critical moment? She shook her head and continued, I've seen the clothes sold outside. They're light and elegant, and indeed very breathable. It's fine to wear them normally. But the reason why your Lord Lin doesn't let you wear them is that he's jealous. He has a strong possessive desire for you and doesn't want you to walk in the crowd in such skimpy clothes. He feels that every man who looks at you, he wants to kill them. This was the first time she had explained something so bluntly. But if she didn't say it, she was afraid that Hua Xiao was an emotional idiot who couldn't understand Lord Lin's deep love hidden in the details. After hearing this, Hua Xiao was unexpectedly silent. She carefully thought about it and slowly pondered in the direction that her good friend had given her. So, He doesn't let me into the kitchen to cook not because he dislikes my cooking, but because I scalded my fingers the last time. He said that if we want to have children in the future, it doesn't matter how many we have, but it's best if one of them is a boy. So it's not because he values boys over girls and doesn't like daughters, but because he doesn't want no one to inherit our family business in the future. Our daughter has to dress up as a man and run around tirelessly like me? Xiao sat at the side and muttered to herself. Her eyes slowly moistened. Chu Qingyan and Qing Yanluo looked at each other and smiled. This idiot. If she were to reveal all of this idiot would probably never understand the deep love that Lord Lin had for her. I'm going back. Xiao suddenly cried out in surprise. Why are you in such a hurry? Cheng Yanluo asked in surprise. At this time, Xiao had already stood up from the chair and looked back at her good friends with a smile. Yes, I still want to try cooking. If I don't have to run around in the future, I want to wash my hands and make soup for him. Saying this, she raised her bright smile and waved her hand before walking away with light steps. Chu Qingyan face-bombed. As expected, you're all here to spread dog food. That's enough. Cheng Yanluo pursed her lips and smiled. Don't you see how miserable we are because of you and His Highness? You can't stand it after this one time? Have you ever considered our feelings? Just as she was about to refute, she saw a figure hurrying through the curtain of rain and heading straight for them. Isn't that Hualing? Why is he carrying someone? Who is it? Cheng Yanluo looked at the curtain of rain and couldn't help but feel puzzled. At this time, Chu Qingyan's heart thumped. Could it be that there was a change in the plan? Chapter 1307. As she got closer, Chu Qingyan immediately recognized the woman lying in Hualing's arms, even though she was in such a sorry state that she could not recognize her face. Just as she was in a daze, Hualing had already brought the people in front of her. She was in a sorry state and was covered in wounds. He knelt heavily on the ground, his eyes filled with self-blame. Young princess consort, it's this subordinate's incompetence that caused the princess to fall off the cliff after being seriously injured. Chu Qingyan returned to her senses and immediately knelt down on one knee. She reached out to brush away the dirt on her face, her voice trembling slightly. Zijing, how did you become like this? She didn't dare to touch other parts of her body, afraid that this body covered in wounds wouldn't be able to withstand her touch. She was a little dazed, but very quickly she felt a weak breath. Her eyes immediately widened. Yanluo, quick, help me save her. Cheng Yanluo had been scrutinizing Pang Zijing the moment she entered the room. When she heard Pang Zijing calling her, she immediately walked over and pressed her hands gently on Pang Zijing's body. Her face darkened as she did so. She was stabbed in the chest, but it wasn't fatal. However, she fell from a high place and suffered many fractures. Not only that, she lost a lot of blood and fell into a deep coma. Her life could be in danger at any time. But this is only on the surface. The specific injuries still need to be examined. Lass, prepare a clean room and servants, I need to do a thorough examination. Cheng Yanluo's words made Chu Qingyan's face turn pale, but she forced herself to remain calm. At this time, she was everyone's pillar of support, so she had to remain calm. All right, Hualing, don't say anything else. Send her to the room first. After Xining and Jasper helped Pang Zijing wash her body and change her into a clean set of clothes, the tears that Xining had been holding back gushed out with a wah. There wasn't a single part of her body that wasn't injured. Her entire body was covered in blood. How much blood could a person shed like this? This kind of princess was so pitiful, it made one's heart ache. Even Jasper, who was used to seeing life and death, couldn't help but turn her eyes red when she saw this scene. Chu Qingyan stood in front of the bed and looked at the person who was as pale as a sheet of paper. Her whole heart felt like it was being squeezed by someone's hand. It was so uncomfortable that she could not breathe. The person who stood in front of her and laughed happily was now lying motionless in front of her, covered in wounds. It was as if someone had cruelly plucked a fresh flower and ravaged it. That kind of devastation made one's heart ache. Yanluo, you have to save her no matter what. Please. At this time, Pang Zijing walked to her side. she grabbed her hand and begged with red eyes. Apart from the people around her, it was rare to see the little lass in such a sorrowful state. Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but turn to look at the person on the bed. Then she looked at her again and said, "All right, I'll do my best." Actually, she wasn't very confident. This kind of injury was too serious, so serious that she might not be able to make it through the night. But she couldn't bear to see the little girl so sad, so she tried her best. "Thank you, Yanluo." Chu Qingyan held her hand tightly. Cheng Yanluo patted her hand and said, "Don't say so much. You all go out. Jasper and Xining stay to help me." Knowing that she needed absolute silence to treat her injury, she didn't dare to delay and immediately left with the others. As soon as she went out, she saw Huoling standing by the pillar with his head bowed, looking upset and remorseful. Hearing the sound of the door closing, Huoling raised his head and said, "Little princess consort." Chu Qingyan had already restrained the grief on her face and walked towards Huoling. "Huoling, don't blame yourself. Whatever happened, it wasn't what we wanted to see. Tell me what exactly happened." Huoling felt the warmth and encouragement in the little princess's eyes, and his eyes stung. He then told her everything that happened, no matter how big or small. "At that time, we went to pick up the princess according to plan. But for some reason, the princess suddenly said that she had something to deal with and asked us to wait for her outside the city. Looking at her appearance, she was very anxious, so this subordinate lent her a horse. But after thinking about it, he was very worried. After the others drove the carriage to the relay station, he ordered them to wait outside the city. He followed the direction Pang Zhijing left in to find her. First, he wanted to protect her, and second, he wanted to prevent her from getting lost. However, he didn't expect Pang Zhijing to go to Feng Tai Mountain. That place was some distance away from the capital. He was puzzled, but he immediately rushed over. But when he arrived, he happened to see a group of people impersonating Xiao like cavalry fighting with a group of people. He was very shocked. At this time, there were actually people who dared to impersonate them to do evil? When he recognized that the people who were stopped were Li Weiyuan and his group, he was even more shocked. At this juncture, the imperial court officials were stopped and killed under their name. If His Majesty mistakenly thought that it was his master's order, he would definitely think that his master was unwilling to hand over the military power and used a trick. The deep meaning behind this made people tremble. So he immediately sent out a signal to Water Spirit, telling her to immediately send people to investigate. When he found that he had lost track of Pang Zhijing, he searched for a while before finding traces of a carriage on another shortcut. He immediately followed it. However, when this subordinate arrived, I heard another group of people say that the princess fell off the cliff. This subordinate didn't believe it, but after finding the princess hairpin and a piece of torn sleeve, this subordinate had no choice but to believe it. However, this subordinate immediately sent out a signal to bring people to the bottom of the cliff to search. I also sent people to invite Bai Yutang and the others over, letting them use the smell of the things the princess left behind to search. In the end, we finally found the princess. Although she was covered in injuries, she was still breathing. This subordinate didn't dare delay and immediately brought her back. Chu Qingyan quietly listened to Huoling's words and her eyes once again became misty. She walked forward and placed her hand on Huoling's shoulder in front of his shocked gaze. With Zhijing's personality, no one can stop her once she makes a decision. Don't blame yourself or regret it, you've already done very well. No matter what, you've helped me save her life, so I should be the one thanking you. She didn't know why Zhijing would risk her life to leave the city, but she could imagine how dangerous the situation was. With her personality, although she normally didn't care about anything, once she made a decision, it would be like leaving Xiaoho. Even 8 horses wouldn't be able to pull her back, not to mention this kind of thing, so Huoling couldn't stop her at all. Moreover, she was very clear on how dangerous the bottom of Feng Tai Mountain was. His injuries were enough to see a few things. Luckily, he was smart and knew to ask Glutinous Rice Ball and the others for help. Animals had a naturally sensitive sense of smell, not to mention the snow wolves. Chapter 1308. Young princess consort, Hualing raised his head, his eyes filled with disbelief. Young princess consort didn't blame him. Anyone with a discerning eye could see how much young princess consort liked the southern Song princess. She had even risked her life to rescue her from the capital. On the way back, he had prepared himself to bear the young princess consort's anger, but she had comforted him instead. Chu Qingyan looked at the stunned man in front of her, and her gaze softened. Hualing, I understand Jijing. Since she has made a decision, she won't listen to anyone. I think she has already prepared herself to bear the consequences of today's events. All we can do is to assist from the side. You don't need to feel too pressured. It's not your fault that the plan failed. Just now, Hualing had mentioned that he had found Xiao Ho's carriage at the edge of the cliff. This proved that Jijing had suddenly left in order to find Xiao Ho. Although she didn't know what had happened or what kind of conspiracy was behind it, it was enough to tell that this matter was extremely dangerous. However, Jijing had still left without hesitation. It was obvious that she cared about Xiao Ho more than she had imagined. Hualing's eyes glistened with tears. You're also injured. Go back and treat it. Otherwise, when His Highness comes looking for you and sees that you're injured, how can I explain it? She patted his shoulder and joked. Hualing looked at her deeply, then nodded heavily. He clutched the wound on his shoulder and turned to leave. Chu Qingyan looked at Hualing's back as he left. She sighed in her heart. Big Ice Cube had such a group of loyal subordinates. It was one of his few blessings in his life. They had done their best to get to this point. How could she bear to blame them? At this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard. She looked in the direction of the sound and saw Ethereal quickly walking over with a medicine box. Young princess consort, this subordinate heard your summons and immediately rushed over. Ethereal said, panting. Good, he's inside. Yenluo is also inside. Quickly go in. Ethereal did not dare to delay. She nodded and pushed the door open. Chu Qingyan clenched her fists and looked at the closed door with hope in her eyes. Jijing, so many of us want you to live. You can't let us down. At the same time, Turin and Water Spirit also appeared in the courtyard. The two of them walked quickly to her side. Why are you here? Shouldn't he be waiting for your highness outside the palace? When she saw Turin, Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Is his highness back? No, master hasn't come out of the palace yet. This subordinate saw the signal sent by the water spirit and thought that something must have happened, so this subordinate immediately came back. On the way, this subordinate also met water spirit. Turin quickly explained. He also wanted to wait for his master outside the palace. As a secret guard, he had always been by his master's side. However, because his master had ordered him to ensure the young princess consort's safety if anything happened, he immediately rushed back when he saw the signal. But don't worry, young princess consort. This subordinate left a portion of the secret guards outside the palace. Seeing the young princess frown and worry in her eyes, Turin added this sentence. Chu Qingyan sighed softly in her heart. Couldn't the big ice cube be more considerate of her? She was in the prince's residence and had so many people protecting her. What did he have to worry about? Although this was what she thought, they were already here. She could not say anything. Thus, she turned to the two of them and said, All right, there are too many people here. Let's go to the study. Turin and Water Spirit nodded and followed her to the study. After the study's door was closed, Chu Qingyan sat down at the head of the table. She looked up at Water Spirit with a stern gaze. I have heard the general situation from the Fire Spirit, but what is going on? Why would someone impersonate the Shaolai cavalry to assassinate General Li? Water Spirit stood up with a serious expression. Young princess consort, after receiving the report from the Fire Spirit, this subordinate sent the elite of the Pigeon Feather Cavalry to Fengtai Mountain to investigate. We found that those impersonators were not there to assassinate General Li. Their target was the third prince. However, General Li returned to the capital, so General Li's men helped the third prince to fight against the enemy. This created a misunderstanding that the person they were targeting was General Li, but it was actually Prince Yi. At this point, Chu Qingyan finally understood why Jijing had suddenly left the city. She must have known that Prince Yi was in danger. That was why she chose to leave at such a critical moment. It was equivalent to giving up her freedom. This subordinate also found several corpses above the cliff where Princess Nansong fell. They were all killed by a sword through their throats. However, what was suspicious was that this subordinate checked their corpses and found that they were not on the same side as the impersonators, General Li or Prince. According to the fire spirit, these people were still alive before he went to the bottom of the cliff. Later, when the pigeon feather cavalry arrived, they were already dead. It can be speculated that these people were the ones who forced Princess Nansong off the cliff. Water Spirit reported all the information she had. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan's frown deepened. In this case, there were 4 groups of people on the Phoenix Terrace at that time. Besides Xiao Ho and General Li, you must investigate the other 2 groups and find out who is behind them. For the first group, you must investigate the people around Xiao Ho. See if he has offended anyone and who is currently opposing His Highness. The impersonators of Xiao Lai's cavalry had obvious motives. Other than using Big Ice Cube to get rid of Xiao Ho, they also wanted to make Big Ice Cube a scapegoat. The first was to find a scapegoat to wash off suspicion. The second was to target Big Ice Cube. Their intentions were murderous. If this spread out, the imperial court and the common people would think that it was Big Ice Cube who killed his brother. The other group was obviously targeting Zijing. On Zijing's side, check her connections and find out who's trying to deal with her. No matter what, we will not take the blame. Chu Qingyan gave several orders, and Water Spirit accepted them one by one. Turin, wait outside the palace. After such a big thing happened, I am very worried about His Highness's safety. But Master asked me to stay by your side to protect you, Turin said hesitantly. She rarely spoke in a tough tone. His Highness is not in the palace right now. Listen to my orders for now. This is an order. You must obey it. Turin knew what she meant and did not refuse. He nodded and agreed. I understand. After Turin left, Chu Qingyan still wanted to say something to Water Spirit, but she was puzzled when she saw the strange look in her eyes. Little princess, I used to think that Master was the backbone of Xiao Lai's cavalry. If one day he is not here or something happens to him, what should we do? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but murmur, Water Spirit do. Chapter 1309. At this time, Chu Qingyan saw Water Spirit looking at her with a gentle expression, and spoke with a slightly hoarse voice. Now this subordinate understands that other than Master, we still have you. This is truly gratifying, as if we no longer need to see Master standing alone at the peak, there is finally someone by his side. A swan with ambition, the people under the heavens could only see his heroic figure spreading his wings, but they did not know how lonely he was on the road ahead. The appearance of the little princess was a dazzling light beside Master, like a gentle breeze and a cloud by his side, like a shadow, moving side by side, he no longer felt lonely. And with her intelligence and strength, she could also lead the Xiao Lai cavalry to a wider road. Water Spirit, Chu Qingyan did not know what to say at this time. A long time ago, when she was by Big Ice Cube's side, she felt that she did not need anyone's permission, she did not need to please anyone, she only needed to confirm her position in Big Ice Cube's heart. The Xiao Lai cavalry and the others, to her, were only people who protected Big Ice Cube. However, as she interacted with them and understood them, she realized that she had developed a different feeling towards the Xiao Lai cavalry. While they protected Big Ice Cube, they were also protecting her. Although she knew that at the beginning, they did not like her, and did not even wish for her to obstruct Big Ice Cube's future path. After all, she was so weak. But they were able to hide their displeasure under Big Ice Cube's orders, and risked their lives to protect her. Thus, she had a strong desire in her heart, and that was to become stronger. She wanted to no longer enjoy the protection of the Big Ice Cube, but to be able to stand beside him and fight side by side with him. Furthermore, she wanted to prove that she was not a rice worm, not a chick hiding behind the Big Ice Cube. She could also spread her wings and soar high. Furthermore, she no longer treated Earth Spirit and the others as ordinary passers-by. Instead, she sincerely wanted to keep them in her life. She wanted more and more to gain the recognition of the few cavalry leaders of the fierce cavalry. That had always been her wish, as if she was being recognized by her family. Because they were the Xiao cavalry that Big Ice Cube treasured. Love me, love my dog. She also wanted to walk side by side with them. Until now, not only did she have her parents, Big Ice Cube, and a few other family members by her side, but all of the fierce cavalry were her brothers and sisters. They all said that she was the one who gave Big Ice Cube the warmth of a family member, but in reality, they were the ones who gave her the warmth of a family. She was extremely grateful that they had appeared in Big Ice Cube's life and then walked into her life. She should be the one thanking him. Water Spirit, I'm very glad that His Highness has a group of companions who treat each other with sincerity. At the same time, I'm also very lucky to be able to meet all of you. In the vast sea of people, how many people miss each other every day? To be able to meet all of you, that's how many necks I broke in my previous life. Chu Qingyan walked forward and reached out to hold her hand. Her expression was emotional as she spoke. However, Water Spirit wanted to hold back her laughter, but in the end, she still burst out laughing. The sad atmosphere instantly disappeared. Chu Qingyan was very confused, but Water Spirit held her stomach and laughed. Little Princess Consort, you really are a living treasure. Fortunately, we didn't break our necks in this life, ha. Seeing that Water Spirit was laughing so hard that tears were about to flow out, she couldn't help but laugh out loud as well. That's right, we're very lucky. When we met, everyone was so positive, beautiful, and strong. Water Spirit couldn't hold back her laughter. Suddenly, she found herself being pulled into a gentle embrace. She was slightly stunned, but then she heard the little princess consort's gentle voice ring in her ears. Water Spirit, there's no such thing as a peaceful life in this world. It's just that someone is carrying the burden for us. So don't disappoint his expectations. You have to live well. This is the best way to miss him. She had never seen Shui Ling truly happy before, only a faint trace of sadness could be seen on her face. The longing was so soft, so bitter. If she lived like this for the rest of her life, then she would never be happy, much less happy. Ever since she heard the story of Ci Shui Slope, she had always loved Water Spirit dearly. Unfortunately, she couldn't persuade her and could only watch her live like this day after day. Little Princess Consort, this time, it was Water Spirit's turn to choke. Feng Ling is watching you from the sky. You have to smile for him, or else he will be heartbroken. Chu Qingyan patted her back and said softly, N. Water Spirit nodded slightly, but tears flowed out of her eyes. I will try to smile for you, Brother Feng Ling. Seeing Water Spirit's thin body slowly disappear into the rain, Chu Qingyan sniffed deeply and blinked away the tears in her eyes. The reason why he had so many emotions today was because he saw Zijing lying there weakly. It was as if she would disappear in the next breath. If it weren't for the love of her heart, she wouldn't have taken such a big risk. She even gave up her freedom and went to find Xiao Ho alone, just for his safety. Sometimes, falling in love with someone was like this. They had been deceiving themselves, saying that it was okay, that they didn't like it and would forget it. But in fact, deep in their hearts, they had already built a city for this person that no one could enter. Some people were alive, but they were dead in their hearts. They died in that city. Some people were dead, but they were alive in their hearts. They were alive in that city. The former was because there was no greater sorrow than the death of the heart. If you don't have the heart, I won't bother you. The latter was because they couldn't walk out of that empty city. They didn't believe that they were dead. And Water Spirit was the latter. She hoped that everyone could be safe and happy, that lovers could be together, and that they wouldn't have to experience life and death. She also hoped that such a kind girl would be able to redeem herself and stop being trapped. Her hands grasped the edge of the table. She gripped it so hard that her fingertips slowly turned white. After coming to this time and space, she had experienced so many life and death situations. Sadly, she found that people were so humble and small in the hands of fate. Fate had the power to control the clouds and rain. It could easily play with people in the palm of its hand. If one wanted to fight against fate and against the heavens, they would have to pay a great price. As for herself, she was not willing to sacrifice anything. Everyone was a part of her life that she could not lose. She suddenly felt boundless sorrow. The only thing she could do now was to rely on her own strength to do her best to protect them. She let go of her hands and tidied up her clothes. The sorrow on her face slowly faded away. If it was necessary, she didn't mind putting on a battle suit and fighting for the people she cared about. As she walked back to the courtyard, Xining was looking for her. Her eyes lit up when she saw her. "Master, Miss Yanluo wants to see you." Chu Qingyan's heart trembled. Worry and fear welled up in her heart. She didn't know what the outcome would be, but she still had to face it. She gathered her thoughts and quickened her pace. "I'll go right away." Chapter 13:10. Because that's the bottom line that I can't cross. Xiao Su's words not only shocked the Sichuan emperor, but also surprised him. He didn't expect that over the past 10 years, no matter what methods he used to probe and force him, he would never resist him so strongly. Now, he was even willing to give up his status for Chu Qingyan. At this moment, the Sichuan emperor felt that he needed to re-evaluate Chu Qingyan. He originally thought that she was just a beautiful and clever girl, but he didn't expect that she could make Xiao Su go to such lengths. That's right, a girl that could catch the eyes of both of his sons, no matter how ordinary she was, couldn't be ordinary. However, when the Sichuan emperor came to his senses, he felt as if he was inferior in front of his son. His authority had been challenged, and a wave of anger rose from his dantian. "Xiao Su, you're impudent." He was so angry that his chest heaved up and down. "How dare you speak to me like that? Imperial father, if this son had always been so obedient to your wishes, would you have given up on the thoughts of the people or objects around this son?" Xiao Su looked directly at the emperor in front of him as he slowly said this. This was a question that had been buried in his heart for countless years. He had always wanted to ask his father face to face. But after saying it, he laughed lowly and said in a mocking tone, "No, if I did, I wouldn't still be asking you for an answer. But in fact, you already have an answer, don't you? Imperial father, you didn't restrain yourself because of this, did you?" When he said the last sentence, Xiao Su raised his head and revealed a mocking expression. His son, who had always shown a cold face to others, not only showed his angry side in front of him, but also revealed such a disappointed heart. This was completely unexpected for the Sichuan emperor. He misspoke and didn't know what to say for a moment, because he couldn't refute Xiao Su's words. At this time, Xiao Su lifted the hem of his clothes and knelt down. His knees hit the ground with a frightening sound. But he didn't care at all. He looked up at the Sichuan emperor and spoke seriously and firmly. "Father, I beg you, as long as you don't touch Ian this time, I am willing to give up my current status. No matter who you hand over the empire to in the future, I will not interfere. I only ask for peace with the person I love. Please grant my wish." He didn't ask for anything else. Imperial power, riches, and honor were nothing more than the smell of wine and meat. He never cared about them. If they wanted it, they could take it away at any time. He wouldn't have any complaints. However, if it was someone who hurt him, even if it was the heavens, he would stab it to the bottom. The Sichuan emperor stood up in shock. He looked at the pair of black eyes and felt incomparably shocked. Although he had weakened his power so many times in the dark, this was the first time he had done so openly. Although the two of them were still holding back, he believed that as long as they continued to talk, the two of them wouldn't be far from being frank. When that time came, they would really have a falling out and there would be no turning back. At this time, the Sichuan emperor couldn't help but think that the southern heavenly envoy was still in the country. If they fell out like this, when the time came, they would send their army south again. At that time, no one would be able to stop their brave and skilled grassland warriors. He was afraid. "Father, let's not talk about this matter for now. Get up." The Sichuan emperor gave in. Now wasn't the time. He couldn't be too ruthless. Xiao Su still wanted to say something, but the Sichuan emperor waved his hand and dismissed him. "I have a headache right now. You can go back." Xiao Su saw that he didn't want to talk about it, so he got up without hesitation. After leaving the imperial study, he turned to look at the splendid plaque and clenched his fingers tightly. When he knelt just now, he had already made a decision. No matter what, he would take the little fellow back to Lian City tomorrow. After Xiao Su left, the Sichuan emperor sat on the dragon throne and recalled the words he had just said. His expression was very ugly. "Your Majesty, Consort Yu has already sent people to the King of England's residence an hour ago." At this time, Eunuch Xiao came in to report. When His Highness came in, the emperor had everyone leave, including Eunuch Xiao. No one knew what the emperor said to His Highness. They only saw that after His Highness left, his face was terrifyingly cold. No one dared to come within 10 steps of him. They also didn't dare to go up and greet him. They just watched him disappear from sight. However, His Highness's body was even colder than when he left a few years ago, but his back was even straighter. Thinking about it, this was another conversation that ended on bad terms. Why did Consort Yu send people to the King of England's residence? The Sichuan emperor was still immersed in the matter just now and asked casually. It seems that the fourth prince is unconscious, so Consort Yu sent people to bring Miss Chu into the palace. After Eunuch Xiao finished speaking, he immediately lowered his eyes. His brother-in-law's condition would only improve after seeing his future sister-in-law. If this spread out, His Royal Highness's face would not look good. The Sichuan emperor immediately understood the twists and turns in the story. His face darkened. He had just promised Xiao Su that he wouldn't touch Chu Qingyan for the time being. At this time, Consort Yu did this to him. If Xiao Su couldn't find her and thought that he was going back on his word, wouldn't that annoy him? "Summon Consort Yu for me." The Sichuan emperor held his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. At this time, a voice sounded. "Your Majesty, there's no need to summon me. This concubine is already here." At this time, Chu Qingyan had already arrived at the courtyard. Her hands were on the doorknob, but she hesitated and didn't dare to open it. "Little girl, you're here? Come in." Cheng Yinluo's tired voice came through the crack in the door. Chu Qingyan didn't hesitate and opened the door. The smell of blood in the room was slowly dispersed by the wind. "How is it?" She quickly walked over. At this time, Cheng Yinluo and Ethereal looked at each other. In the end, Ethereal said, "Young Princess Consort, you have to be mentally prepared. The patient's condition is very bad." Chu Qingyan forced herself to calm down. She nodded. "I know. Now, tell me the results of the diagnosis." Cheng Yinluo put down the silver needles in her hand and walked up to her. "Like I said before, the wound on her chest isn't life-threatening. I've checked her limbs and they're basically broken. However, they can be reattached. Compared to other injuries, this isn't a problem. The only problem is that she fell from a high place and hit a hard object. Then she fell hard on the ground, causing her internal organs to suffer severe internal injuries. This is going to be very tricky. This is very serious." Chu Qingyan trembled with fear. Finally, she couldn't help but grab Cheng Yinluo's hand and ask anxiously, "What do you mean by very serious? Can it be cured?" "Young Princess Consort, even if we cure her internal injuries, I'm afraid she won't live for more than half a month," Ethereal whispered from the side. Chapter 13:11. But what do you mean by curing her internal injuries? She won't live for more than half a month? Chu Qingyan's body swayed. She felt that she couldn't understand her words either. Seeing her like this, Cheng Yinluo didn't feel good either. She asked, "Is this the friend you said you wanted me to treat?" Chu Qingyan nodded immediately. "Is there a problem?" Yinluo wasn't the kind of person who would speak nonsense at critical moments. She must have her reasons. Only to hear her good friend sigh softly before looking at her, "This young lady has been inflicted with a slow-acting poison called the life-severing poison. Today, she was severely injured and her internal organs were damaged, causing the poison in her body to spread uncontrollably. Within half a month, the poison will definitely act up and she will die if she is not treated. This is why Murong said that she could only be saved for a short while." Ethereal continued, Moreover, once the life-severing poison acts up, it will be extremely torturous. She won't be able to live nor die. We just discussed that instead of letting her suffer the pain of her internal injuries, the torture before the poison acts up, and the pain when the poison acts up, why don't we end her now? Because when the time comes, even the young princess consort won't be able to bear to see her in such agony. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but take a step back. When it rains, it pours. This was exactly what they meant. God just loved to set up a series of traps for them. Just when you thought you had successfully escaped, you were actually stepping into a new vortex. God would never stop telling you that what was in front of you was not a path, but a challenge. You would have to experience even more pain. She turned around and slowly walked towards the dying person lying on the bed. Although her entire body had been cleaned and her face was pure, she was like a fragile doll, fragile yet lovable. Fate was so unfair. Good people didn't have peace, but scourges lived for 1,000 years. She reached out to hold Pang Jijing's hand and slowly closed her eyes. Her eyes were moist. Back then, this girl had told her that she wanted freedom. She wanted to breathe fresh air under the blue sky. She had asked her to help her leave this place. But now, she was lying here as if she had lost her soul. She was quiet and in pain. No, they shouldn't bow down to fate, not fight back, and passively accept such a cruel ending. Chu Qingyan immediately turned around and grabbed Qing Yanluo's hand. She pleaded, "Yanluo, is there any other way? Please, you have to save her. She's still so young and hasn't enjoyed her freedom. She hasn't confessed her feelings to the person she loves. How can she surrender to fate? How can you just accept your fate like this?" Cheng Yanluo held her hand and pursed her lips. Finally, she made up her mind and said, "Little girl, don't be sad. We do have a plan, but we can't guarantee that it'll work. Or rather, we don't even have a 10% chance of success. Can't even guarantee 10%? However, Chu Qingyan seemed to be grasping at the last straw. She asked anxiously, "What is it?" "Murong and I can't detoxify this poison, but we want to ask my father for help. He knows a lot about poisons in the world. Maybe he knows how to detoxify this poison. But the problem is, it's at least half a month's journey from here to my father's place. I'm afraid that we won't be able to make it in time. Or even if we do, my father won't be able to do anything about it." Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but look at the person beside her. Chu Qingyan was silent. This was what Yanluo meant. They didn't even have a 10% chance of success. This was like a gamble. If they won, it would be good. But if they lost, there was no turning back. She couldn't help but hold Pang Jijing's hand again. Her voice was dry and hoarse as she said with difficulty, "Jijing, if you can't bear the pain, we'll give you a quick death. We won't let you suffer anymore. If you want to live, we'll go with the second plan. What do you think?" The person on the bed didn't give any response, but Chu Qingyan made the final decision. "Ethereal, Yanluo, will do as you said. Find divine Dr. Luo and save Jijing," she said resolutely. Ethereal and Yanluo weren't surprised by her decision. They immediately nodded in agreement. Time was of the essence. They couldn't care less about anything else. They immediately returned to their rooms to prepare the things they needed to leave. Xining also went downstairs to instruct the butler to prepare the horses, dry rations, and other things. At this moment, the room became silent. Chu Qingyan held Jijing's hand tightly. She knew that Jijing wanted to live. Just now, Jijing had struggled in her hand, as if she was struggling to take a step into the gates of hell. "Please, I want to live. I want to see Xiao Ho find happiness with my own eyes. I haven't done anything yet. I can't just die like this." Chu Qingyan rested her forehead against Pang Jijing's. She said in a soft and firm voice, "Don't worry. We'll bring you back safely." Her voice was so gentle that it could drip water. But she closed her eyes. Tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. At this moment, Consort Yu had already walked into the imperial study. She calmly faced Sichuan Emperor's gaze and bowed to him. Then she said, "Your Majesty, I know you want to ask me about the matter of secretly going to the King of England's residence to take Chu Qingyan away. Ran is unconscious. This concubine is truly afraid that he will continue to sleep like this. Your Majesty, this concubine knows that you have many children, but this concubine only has one son. If something were to happen to him, this concubine is afraid that this concubine will not be able to continue living alone. That is why this concubine wants to fulfill his wish. Didn't you say that after today, Miss Chu will no longer be His Highness Prince Ying's fiancée? Sichuan Emperor looked at her coldly. Didn't we tell you that we'll take care of Ranner's matter? Why do you have to get involved? Consort Yu took a deep breath. Her eyes glistened with tears. Your Majesty, please forgive me. As a mother, I can't do anything about it. Sichuan Emperor couldn't bear to scold her when he saw her like this. But because of this, things had become very troublesome. We've already promised that we won't touch Chu Qingyan for the time being. You've put us in a difficult situation. If he resists when the time comes, and the Southern Heavenly Envoy group is still here, it'll be very disadvantageous for us. After experiencing today's events, he realized that Xiao Su wasn't as cold as he seemed on the surface. Moreover, he already had a premonition that if he touched Xiao Su's reverse scale this time, he was afraid that Xiao Su wouldn't let things go like before. What's wrong with that? Just say that Chu Qingyan will stay in the palace for a few days. After 2 days, we'll send her back. At that time, the marriage will be over and the Southern Heavenly Envoy group will have left. At that time, we won't have anything to worry about. Consort Yu's words made Sichuan Emperor come to a realization. Originally, he wanted to force him into a corner and see if he would retaliate. At that time, he would be able to take him down in one fell swoop and resolve this crisis. Xiao Su, let us see how capable you are. However, in this world, plans can't keep up with changes. Sichuan Emperor and Consort Yu probably didn't expect that this marriage would never be completed. Chapter 13:12. Cheng Yanluo finished packing and walked out. She bumped into Ethereal. Her gaze landed on the bundle he was carrying and she asked in surprise, "You're going too? Is there a problem?" Ethereal walked up to her with the bundle in his hand and asked in confusion. "I can handle this alone. You should stay in the prince's residence," Cheng Yanluo said with a smile. Ethereal immediately shook his head and rejected the suggestion. "No, I can't let you go back alone. Master's residence is treacherous. I won't be at ease if you go back alone. You're too silly." Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but laugh and shake her head. "The little girl will definitely assign enough guards to protect me. The fierce cavalry and her howling cavalry are all experts. Your martial arts might not be as good as theirs. I think it's more reliable for them to protect me than for you to protect me. Why do I feel like I'm being despised?" Ethereal couldn't help but complain to her. Seriously, ever since he recovered from his injuries, he would change his method whenever he couldn't win an argument. He would always act like a docile wife, making her unable to do anything to him. "I'm not despising you. I just think that it's better for you to stay here. I can handle this alone." Cheng Yanluo flashed him a confident smile and comforted him. Ethereal's eyes instantly revealed a puzzled expression. He couldn't help but size her up. "Xiaoyan, why are you?" She knew what he wanted to say when she saw his expression. She took a step forward and reached out to hold his hand. Her face was bright and beautiful as she looked up at him with a gentle gaze. "Are you curious why I've changed my mind? I'm no longer like many years ago, when I wanted to tie you to my side and never leave your side." Ethereal was speechless. How could he admit it? Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but chuckle when she saw his awkward expression. "Murong, people change. After so many years, we've been through so much together. Wouldn't it be a waste if I didn't gain anything?" Ethereal was slightly taken aback. "Xiaoyan," Cheng Yanluo interrupted him. "Don't say anything. Let me finish. Before I met you again, I admit that I couldn't understand you. What does the responsibility on your shoulders and the brothers in your heart have to do with me? Why did you risk your life to complete and protect them? You even left me alone in the sect for them." "Xiaoyan, I'm sorry." Ethereal couldn't help but apologize. Cheng Yanluo flashed a smile at him. "But after getting to know the little girl, the fire spirit, Turin, and the others, we went through life and death together. Only then did I understand what responsibility is, what it means to do everything in my power to protect the peace and tranquility. I also understand your dilemma, your fear, and your feelings. I feel that I'm very selfish. I only have feelings for love in my eyes, and I'm too greedy. I only think of myself, and I'm insensible enough to force you to choose between me and them. I've always thought that when two people are in love, they should have no distractions and shouldn't have any other ties. Actually, I was wrong. When you love someone, you should be his strong support and let him do what he wants without any distractions, instead of being his tie. It's because of this that you and I missed so many years. If I had thought it through earlier, perhaps we could have had more beautiful memories instead of regretting each other's absence. At this point, she hid the remorse in her eyes and looked at Ethereal's slightly trembling eyes. She smiled and said, "Murong, I've learned a lot from you. I won't interfere with the righteousness in your heart anymore. I won't be so selfish as to tie you to me. I'll be your strongest support, so you can rest assured and carry out your mission. I only want you to be safe." When she finished her last sentence, Kong Ling reached out and pulled her into his arms. "Xiaoyan, do you know? I've never been so happy before. Thank you. Thank you for your understanding. In this life, I, Murongju, am so lucky to be able to go to the end of our lives hand in hand with you." He hugged her tightly and his heart felt as if it was surrounded by a warm current. For a moment, he was so moved that he couldn't say anything. Cheng Yanluo scolded him, but her throat was so hoarse that she couldn't say another word. Let time stop at this moment and embrace eternity without separation. Originally, she didn't intend to say these words to him, but a lifetime was so long. She couldn't let him live in guilt and self-blame all the time, could she? That was why she told him the truth when she left this time. She didn't want him to be in a dilemma between her and his responsibilities, unable to advance or retreat. The little girl was right. If you truly loved someone, it wasn't to restrain them, but to let them spread their wings and soar with peace of mind. Murong, I don't want to be a tie that binds you. I want to be a companion by your side. Two figures stood in the hallway. Chu Qingyan looked indifferently at the scene of rain flowing down from the eaves. Suddenly she spoke. "Jasper, why do you think there's been endless rain these days? Perhaps it's because the clouds bear too much resentment, so there's endless tears." Hearing this, she turned to look at Jasper. When she spoke, she smiled and said, "When did our black-bellied and aloof Jasper become so artistic? This isn't like you. This servant is speaking on behalf of Master. Your sorrowful mood today is too heavy." Jasper replied without thinking. Today, Master had experienced great joy, great pain, and great sorrow. Just now, when she stood under the eaves, her entire person seemed to be one with heaven and earth. She couldn't help but feel a little distressed. She wondered if His Highness would feel even more distressed if he saw Master like this. Is that so? Life is always smooth sailing. There are often small storms, but it's normal to have big storms occasionally, she replied softly. Her gaze fell on the dark clouds that showed no signs of dissipating. She muttered in her heart, "Why isn't the big ice block back yet?" She wanted to throw herself into his arms and vent all the sadness of today. "Master, Miss Yanluo and Lord Ethereal are here." Jasper reminded her. Chu Qingyan turned around and saw the two beauties walking over hand in hand. She couldn't help but smile. "Little girl, I have to set off tonight. I found a shortcut on the map just now. This way, we can shorten the journey time. Even if it's only a day, it's still precious." Cheng Yanluo went straight to the point. She couldn't help but worry. Won't the journey be bumpy? Won't it be bad for her injuries? Most shortcuts were mountain roads with strange rocks. It was precisely because it was close that it was difficult to travel. For someone like her who has one foot in the gates of hell, it can't be too bad. Cheng Yanluo sighed. Chu Qingyan felt a slight pain in her eyes. "All right, then I'll leave her in your care. Please be sure to save her." "I'll do my best," Cheng Yanluo replied with a straight face. "Okay, wait a minute. She has someone she loves deeply. Should I tell him about this? Chapter 13:13. Should she tell Xiaoho? Perhaps he still didn't know that Jijing was with them. Although Xiaoho was Big Ice Cube's sworn enemy, she couldn't bear to see Jijing's eyes light up every time she talked about him. There was no rational reason for liking someone. Regardless of whether the person was good or evil, righteous or evil, they were all beyond one's control. Xiaoho was hateful, but he was still someone that Jijing loved with all her might. Putting aside their personal grudges as her friend, they couldn't decide this matter for her. Cheng Yanluo looked at the pretty girl who was being carried to the carriage and sighed heavily. Then she turned to her friend and said, "In my opinion, we shouldn't tell him about this. Whether or not he can be saved is still a question. We shouldn't let him experience despair again after being disappointed." At this time, Huoling came over and heard everyone's discussion. He said worriedly, "I agree with Miss Cheng's words. We originally wanted to send the princess away. If it were anyone else, it would be fine. I'm afraid that Prince Yi will use this matter to make things difficult for Master. Moreover, the fight on the Phoenix Terrace will soon alert His Majesty. If he knows that we saved the princess, I'm afraid we can't be cleared of suspicion. After all, Prince Yi and those people saw the princess appear on the Phoenix Terrace." Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and pondered. What Yanluo and Huoling said was reasonable. This was no longer a simple matter between Jijing and Xiaoho. It involved the internal strife of the imperial court and the dispute between the two countries. Therefore, this matter couldn't be related to the King of England's residence. "Okay, let's do it. Leave at night. Xiao Qi will open a path for you and protect you." Chu Qingyan made a prompt decision. She called out Xuji and the others and gave them the task. After everything was settled, she turned around and grabbed her friend's hand. She said apologetically, "Yanluo, I'm really sorry. You've just returned and I already have a favor to ask of you. It wasn't easy for the two of you to be together, but now you're separated. Don't be silly. Isn't that what friends are like? Wait for me to come back. Little girl, take care." Cheng Yanluo reached out and hugged her. Then she turned and left resolutely, afraid that she would be reluctant to leave. Ethereal followed her and saw her to the door. Looking at the two of them leaving together, Chu Qingyan felt both guilty and touched. Fortunately, she had so many good friends by her side. When they encountered difficulties and thorns, they could hold hands and overcome them together. "Little princess consort, please don't be sad. There are still things waiting for you to deal with." Huoling stood on the side and comforted her. Only then did Chu Qingyan remember that there was still a big mess waiting for her to clean up. The emotions on her face were instantly wiped clean. "Do you know where Xiaoho is now? I heard that he was taken away by Li Weiyuan. At that time, he was already heavily injured and unconscious." Huoling reported honestly. Hearing this, she pondered for a moment and said, "The substitute that we prepared before is still in use. Do you know how to deal with it?" This subordinate understands. Huoling understood. "Do your best to conceal it. Don't let anyone find out, especially Xiaoho." Chu Qingyan's tone was cold and solemn. At that time, it was that girl, Jijing, who had decided to leave. Now that she was heavily injured and unconscious, she couldn't make any decisions for her. Everything would be carried out according to the original plan. If Jijing could escape this disaster, then it would be up to her to decide whether or not to tell Xiaoho. Now, as she wished, she would first help her break free from the shackles of the Southern Song Princess. Now, pay close attention to Xiaoho and Li Weiyuan's movements. Cooperate with Water Spirit to investigate the fake Xiao Lai cavalry and the assassin who tried to assassinate Jijing. Chu Qingyan gave a series of orders. Huoling nodded and noted them down. Just as she finished giving orders, she heard a familiar voice. "Qingyan, Iron Rooster and I are here to see you." The voice arrived before the person arrived. Chu Qingyan turned and saw Hua Xiao making a fuss. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. "Didn't you just leave at noon? Why are you here again?" When Hua Xiao heard this, She immediately pursed her lips and looked at the person behind her. Iron Rooster, they don't welcome us. My heart hurts. Let's go back. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she and Lin Fengyi looked at each other and smiled. This clown really didn't know what to do with her. Lin Fengyi patted her head and said, "Don't throw a tantrum. I'll cook with you when we get back." Hua Xiao was so happy with just one sentence. She even showed off to her good friend. "Look, my Iron Rooster is so considerate." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but shake her head and laugh. Hey, don't burn the bridge after crossing the river. Think about who was the one crying and looking for me this morning? Do you want me to reveal to Sir Lin what you said? Qing, you. Hua Xiao stomped her feet in anger. She had almost forgotten that her good friend was a fox in rabbit skin. She was very cunning, and she actually dared to provoke her. She was simply too masochistic. Is there something I don't know? Lin Fengyi looked curiously at the two. At this time, Hua Xiao immediately winked at her good friend, telling her not to reveal what she had said this morning. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to go back today. When Chu Qingyan received her request, she snorted. When she saw her begging with her eyes, she finally cleared her throat and said, "It's nothing. Just a girl's private conversation." Lin Fengyi laughed and shook his head. It had to be about him. But now wasn't the time to discuss this. He first comforted the little rabbit beside him and then turned to face Chu Qingyan. His expression was serious as he said, "I came this time to find you." Hearing this, Chu Qingyan stilled. "Does Sir Lin have something to say?" Lin Fengyi nodded. "Can we talk in private?" Even though she didn't understand, she still nodded and extended her hand in invitation. "Sir, please come with me to the study." "All right." But at this time, the steward quickly walked over in the rain. "Wang Fei, someone from the palace has come and wants to see you." Chu Qingyan stopped in her tracks, her eyes flickering with uncertainty. The big ice cube had just been summoned to the palace by Sichuan Emperor a few hours ago and had not yet returned. Now, someone from the palace had come to summon her. What was going on? After the big ice cube left, her heart had been in a state of unease. Now it was even stronger. Her expression was calm as usual. She turned to look at the steward. "Do you know who sent her?" "She was sent by consort Yun Yang. She's called Jiang Mama," the steward replied. "It was consort Yu?" Speaking of which, she didn't have any interactions with this consort of Sichuan Emperor. Why did she choose to invite her to the palace at this time? She turned to look at Lin Fengyi, who had a serious expression on his face. She rolled her eyes and thought for a moment. Then, she made a prompt decision and said to the butler, "Tell her that I'll be there in a change of clothes. Serve her well and don't neglect the important guest." After the steward left, Chu Qingyan immediately said to Lin Fengyi, "Sir Lin, let's go to the study first." Lin Fengyi nodded and the two immediately headed to the study. It seemed that the atmosphere wasn't right. At the side, Hua Xiaoli didn't dare to be presumptuous and quietly followed. Chapter 13-14. Once they entered the study, Chu Qingyan had Hua Ling close the door and check to see if anyone was eavesdropping. After everything was safe, Chu Qingyan looked at Lin Fengyi. "Lin Darren, it is very safe here. What do you want to say to Qingyan? You can say it now without worry." At the beginning, when he said he had something to talk to her about, her expression was very normal as if she didn't feel anything. However, after the people from the palace came, he found that the emotions in her eyes kept changing. Without thinking, she arranged for Jiang Mama's people to rest and then used the excuse of changing clothes to invite him to the study. It was clear that she had already guessed the purpose of his visit to the Wang Fu. After analyzing Chu Qingyan, Lin Fengyi couldn't help but feel a trace of admiration for her. This girl was so young but her thoughts were so meticulous. Just from the changes in his expression, she guessed his purpose. He couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for her. No wonder she was the person chosen by Xiao Su. She had the qualifications and the courage. Good. Lin Fengyi nodded and didn't keep her in suspense. He said directly, The reason I came to find you is because I received news that Xiao Su was summoned into the palace by Xiao Su today. Even though I don't know what His Majesty's intentions are, I thought of the matter of General Li Weiyuan entering the capital today and felt that it was a bit strange. If His Majesty plans to let you return to your fief, he would definitely summon Xiao Su into the palace to discuss the handover after General Li meets with His Majesty. Therefore, the timing is a bit unclear. You are right. Chu Qingyan nodded and felt that Lin Fengyi's words made sense. At this time, she finally found the reason for her unease. Happiness came too suddenly and made her dizzy. So the timing wasn't right. Even though she didn't react at the time, the big ice cube was smart and must have sensed something. She didn't know what kind of mood he was in when he left the Wang Fu today. I came to the Wang Fu because I wanted to wait for his safe return. If Xiao Su had returned now, then everything would be fine. However, there is still no sign of him. I am truly worried. When he said this, Lin Fengyi looked at Chu Qingyan with a slightly worried gaze. However, I did not think that Imperial concubine Yu would also send someone to find you. This is truly inconceivable. I am also very puzzled. I don't know if I am too sensitive, but I feel uneasy. She was silent for a while before looking at Lin Fengyi. If I have to give a reason, it could be because of Xiao Ran. I haven't seen him in a while. How about you refuse to enter the palace this time and find a reason to say that you are not feeling well and wait for Xiao Su to return before making any plans? Lin Fengyi also felt that the other's intentions were unclear. To be safe, it was better to wait for Xiao Su to return. At this time, Jasper knocked on the door and came in. Her expression was not good. Master, this subordinate went out to investigate just now and found that this Jiang Mama brought many guards with her. They are stationed outside the door and do not come with good intentions. Chu Qingyan frowned deeply and then shook her head at Lin Fengyi, saying, Darren's suggestion may not work. If they do not have any ulterior motives, then it would be fine. But looking at the situation, they suddenly summon me when His Highness is not here. Also, if I resist, they will use force as a backup. This time, it must be done. Therefore, if I refuse, I am afraid that they will not leave the matter at that. Lin Fengyi also frowned. I keep feeling that this trip bodes ill rather than well. Have you made your preparations? When Chu Qingyan heard this, she suddenly smiled. Even if there is a mountain of swords and a sea of fire in front of me, I will still charge forward. Moreover, I have His Highness as my backing. There is nothing to be afraid of. Lin Fengyi was slightly stunned, but then he heard her suddenly say to him seriously, Darren Lin, if His Highness returns and finds out that I am not here, please advise him not to be impulsive. Perhaps things are not as bad as we think, but if something really happens, please comfort him. I am not a fledgling and can protect myself. However, it is already difficult for us to move forward in the capital. Every move we make is under the watchful eyes of those with ulterior motives. I do not want anything to happen to him, so if I am not here, please help me take good care of him. Miss Chu, do not worry. Even if you did not ask, I would have done so. Lin Fengyi collected himself and agreed. Thank you, Darren Lin. Then I can go without worry. Chu Qingyan gave him a deep bow, then turned around and stepped onto the road without hesitation. Lin Fengyi stood by the door and looked at her back in the curtain of rain. The rain was majestic and the thunder rumbled, as if it could destroy anything in the world. However, in this world, only she calmly walked under the paper umbrella. Her clothes fluttered like burning fireworks, overflowing with the mortal world. No matter how heavy the rain outside was, it seemed to have nothing to do with her. She focused on moving forward without turning back. A strange emotion surfaced in his eyes. Xiao Su, all the misfortune and suffering you have experienced in this life have been exchanged for a woman you love the most. It can be considered worth it. Miser, why do I feel that Qingyan will not be able to return this time? Xiao, who was standing in the study and listening quietly, tugged on Lin Fengyi's sleeve and asked in a somewhat sorrowful voice. I also do not know. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. We cannot stop these things from happening, but we still have the best hope. I hope that Xiao Su and Miss Chu can turn misfortune into fortune, achieve positive results, and no longer have to face any more calamities. Lin Fengyi reached out and patted the back of her hand, then pulled her into his arms to comfort her. Compared to your Highness Qingyan, I find that we are already sufficiently fortunate and happy. In the future, I will not be angry at you anymore. If I am angry at you, I will first count to 3 before deciding whether or not to be angry. She buried her head in his clothes, her voice sorrowful. Okay, I will definitely not be angry at you. He tightened his arms and looked at the stone path that was already empty. He sighed softly in his heart. Xiao Su, quickly come back. At the same time, Xiao Su had already walked out of the imperial palace. The carriage of the Wang Fu appeared in front of him. He raised his head to look at Turin sitting on the carriage and jumped onto it. Turin felt a clear icy presence on his master's body. He thought that his master must have had some displeasure with his majesty in the palace because he had not seen his master like this for more than 5 years. This king was not here today. Is everything in the Wang Fu well? Xiao Su closed his eyes and asked in a deep voice. Everything in the Wang Fu is well, but a few major events have occurred. Hearing this, Xiao Su frowned and opened his eyes. Turin thought of the young Wang Fei's orders and did not dare to conceal anything. He reported everything that had happened on Feng Tai Mountain, including Pang Jijing's injury. Because Turin had left early, he did not know how Pang Jijing's injury was. Xiao Su's first concern was not the impersonation of Xiao Lai cavalry, but Pang Jijing's injury. He knew how much his little fellow valued this friend. Now that something like this had happened, she must not be feeling well. He wanted to immediately appear by her side to comfort her. Xiao Su's expression instantly became even colder. Have the carriage driver speed up. This king wants to return to the Fu immediately. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.